3, 2, 1. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, George Lucas became a hack, and some people talked about it.
Hey,
This is
don't say
Sardonicast,
that.
everybody. What do you mean? What do you mean, don't say
That's
that? I just
mean.
said it.
He's not a hack.
Yeah, sure. This is Adam from Your Movie Sucks.
I'm Ralph from youtube.com/Ralph the Movie Maker. This is where the
And
fun
I'm Alex
begins.
from IHG. That's it, just keep going. Just keep quoting.
Yeah.
Do some more
No,
prequel
go
quotes while we're at it.
Yeah, sure. Okie day.
This will be a fine addition to my collection. Okie day. What's that great one?
Your new empire!
My Dello Felligets.
Yes.
That's a
Oh,
good
God.
Misa
Dello
propose!
But I can't stress how painful it was to watch it with subtitles because they misspelled the words for him too. It was like they
It's
emphasized it.
essential.
Before we start talking about this, we should probably mention the
Okay,
other
then.
couple things we want to before we get into that. 420 awards happened. They didn't get live streamed. Who could have seen this coming? Nobody thought that was a possibility, that Derek Savage couldn't figure out how to live stream an event and wouldn't properly coordinate it so that somebody else who knew how to would.
Oh dear. Oh dear. That's all I can say.
Yep.
Yeah.
Will
But all his
Smith won.
tweets and everything said live tonight, the 420 Awards. Why did it say live?
I don't
If he
know.
didn't live stream it.
Yeah, I don't know why
Does
he
he
would.
know
know
what the word live means? Yeah.
It's a live event. It's live if you're there.
Yeah, it's a live event, so he put live.
I don't know. I think he's just going to try and sell it as a DVD. Maybe he never planned on actually live streaming it. Maybe it was just another one of his promises.
Will you buy it? if
Of
he does
course I
sell it?
will, but I have to send it to a friend's address because I'm pretty sure he just won't send it to me. That's what I've been doing with all the recent Cool Cat stuff. I'll like send it to a friend
right.
that
Yeah.
might even live in a different city that I visit every so often. And then it's like, he doesn't know it's me, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
because he refunded me before, so
Oh. Fans of ours were there, right? At the 420 Awards?
yeah,
Yeah.
I read some like fan accounts.
Someone put a video on our Reddit, right?
yeah.
Look very awkward.
Did you watch it?
Just the very beginning. Yeah. I watched some
Yeah.
of it. It's been a while. I saw it like last week, but
Intro by
was
Derek
pretty
Savage at the 420
Very
Awards, talking about how he made the award show because other Hollywood award shows are too political. At the 420 Awards by
Not seeing the
Derek
irony there, yeah.
Savage, the man with the most inappropriately political Twitter account for a cartoon children's brand of all time. This is the man that gets way too political, complaining about how
You
other
can't make
people are
this
too
up.
political.
It's too brilliant. It's too brilliant.
If he watched the Academy Awards and they were spouting the exact same shit as him, I think he'd be okay with it. Because he literally said in his intro, like, it's too liberal. Too liberal. He literally said the word liberal, so, I mean,
yeah.
he's a funny
Oh,
man.
he's a
I think
nutter.
he's just a genius. He's just ahead of our time.
He's misunderstood.
Yeah.
Name one genius that ain't crazy.
I don't know.
Got me there. See?
I guess that's it. All we have to say about the 420 Awards.
Well, yeah, we can't watch it, so
Yeah.
I would
Yeah,
have loved to have seen it. But,
Will Smith
you know,
won,
funny.
and also Emma Stone. I don't know what the other awards went to.
What
I
did
didn't
they
really
win?
look it up.
What were the awards? Best. Like,
Well, it
Yeah,
used to
we
be
should-
like hottest hunk, but then
Let's
he
see the
changed the
winners.
name to something else. Like just best
Right.
actor, but not necessarily from a movie specific to this past year. Just like,
So you
who
just
do you
gave
like?
it to Will Smith.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure all of the awards lined up
Wow.
with the Twitter polls. You know how he just had all those polls on Twitter? I'm pretty sure that's how they were decided.
Oh yeah.
So like you already knew the answers before showing up to the awards, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh boy, you can't make this up.
You think there would be like a list of winners on his website, but
Yeah, but maybe you just
It's
have to
really
scroll
hard
through
to
his Twitter
navigate.
polls to find them. Same difference.
nope. Very professional.
Um, there was a question that we got last episode about which which famous people have seen our videos, and then somebody posted in the comments for the episode in our subreddit, like, hey, I can't believe Adam didn't mention Charlie Kaufman, and so I'm doing that now. And
Yes,
yeah.
of course.
I didn't mention any of the people I've interviewed. I have an entire interview playlist on my
Kenny
channel.
Hotz.
I guess I just like
Kenny Hotz. You
compartmentalized
just
that as
forgot.
something completely different. Like, yeah, they all watched my videos. I mean, before I even interviewed them, too. That's why I got these interviews. I interviewed Charlie Kaufman. I interviewed Lloyd Kaufman, unrelated. Matt Johnson, unrelated to me. And Kenny Hotz. And also Duke Johnson was there with Charlie Kaufman. And they all had positive things to say about my videos, and it was very heartwarming, especially Charlie Kaufman. Because he's like one of my idols, too. So that was definitely like a checklist off the things to do before I die sort of thing.
The bucket list, yeah.
You know what's fucking crazy? That was my first interview I've ever given, was Charlie Kaufman. And that's why I sound so nervous in it, too.
I was going to say, well, surely you're really nervous for that.
Yeah. You can kind of hear it at the beginning.
It was a good one, though.
Yeah,
Come on
I'm
the
happy
show,
I did
Charlie. We'll talk about Star Wars Episode 3 together.
it. Yeah.
His favorite, I'm
It's
sure.
going to be fun. Yeah. I bet he really wants to do that.
And a bit of Avengers Endgame, perhaps?
Yeah, of course. You think you saw it this weekend? Well, spoilers? Or just no spoilers for now?
we can give a short blurb before we start spoilers.
Yeah. We should talk... Yeah, spoilers later.
Yeah, so the
Time code or whatever.
the movie sold out really quickly. It's already like the 18th highest grossing film of all time, and it's only been like 3 days.
It made $1 billion in a weekend.
Yeah. Broke records. Everybody saw this coming, though. Nobody's surprised.
Yeah.
But is it any good, is the question, I suppose?
I think. I mean, it's not any good, but...
Is it better than the last one?
No. Not in my opinion. Not at all.
I don't think so.
Very
I don't even
different.
think the fans really do feel the same either.
I saw a lot of responses, and there's apparently a lot of people who consider it to be like their favorite movie ever, unironically. Not trying to insult them, I'm just saying these people exist.
Right. Some people got very emotional.
Oh, yeah.
It. Like people crying, and I teared up a little when something happened.
Spoiler.
I said something happened, and I teared up.
I was trying to cut you off before you did it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, mentioning spoilers is so dense with just things.
My 20-minute review, I get into spoiler section at the 2-minute mark, so like you literally can't talk about the plot, like anything even remotely considered like the initial incident, or like when things start rolling, you're already spoiling it because the way that things were set up
the
from
movie
the
is
last
literally
film.
spoilers for the previous one. Yeah.
I mean, anyway, I thought it was average overall. I mean, not average as in like, oh, I saw something I've never seen before and it's not unique or anything, but like pros versus cons, achievements versus annoyances, flaws, etc. I have some issues with it.
I think it was aiming to do a lot. Like, I don't see it as average. I see it as like it kind of falls on its face sometimes.
Yeah.
With some of the characters, and it's a little too long, and there's a lot of bad comedy.
Oh yeah,
and I'm sure we'll get into these things. I don't like. Oh fuck, the spoiler. So we can't talk about.
Yeah, let's spoiler section, everybody. All right, first spoiler.
Well, Alex, do you have anything else to say before we go into spoiler section?
I guess I would just say, unlike Infinity War, which kind of stands alone, I think it feels more like the last episode of a TV season, kind of culmination of 20, however many movies it was. So in that respect, it's kind of a nice payoff if you've been paying attention to these movies. But then we need to get into spoilers as to the issues I have with the overall thing.
Spoiler section, everybody. You're gonna get spoiled. You can skip this conversation. Just click on the timestamp. 3, 2, 1. Spoilers. All right. Most important spoiler. Hulk dabs. Thor plays Fortnite. Ouch. Never saw that coming.
The most epic parts of the movie,
Yeah, there was some bad comedy in it. I didn't even mention that shit.
I really didn't like what they did with Thor at all, really.
Yeah.
I thought Thor was a bad character in this.
Yeah, it was
like
kind of
felt
lame.
Really flat. I didn't like it at all. And like, oh, he's got a beer belly. That got old after 5 seconds, and they kept having close-ups on it. Just everything with him was so poorly handled.
Yeah. It didn't even look
like
real. I mean, like, it looked like just a dumb fat suit, which is part of the problem for me. Is like, I don't know, you have so much production value going into this movie, but they just decided not to add any weight to his face, I guess is an intentional choice, because they're like, oh, we can't make Thor
gave
ugly.
Him a beard.
We can make him kind of a daddy bod, but we can't make him ugly, you know?
Yeah. They made Tony Stark at the beginning look really skinny.
Yeah.
Because he'd been like
impressive.
trapped in space. Yeah, and that looked really good.
Okay.
So that was odd.
There's a lot of like
that.
de-aging and aging with the CGI that's really well done in this. Not Tommy Lee Jones. Who was it?
The
Michael
guy from
Douglas?
Mad Men.
Yeah, he was really well done. Like the young version of him. And then old Captain America.
Yeah, he looked good too.
Coming back to Thor, did you guys feel as though they kind of strategically avoided shooting his belly after like the halfway point in the movie? When they're like, things are serious again, let's not pay any more attention to him being fat. Like they gave him like bulkier clothes. It's like you couldn't even tell at that point. If somebody watched from like the halfway point of the movie to the end, you wouldn't even know that he got fat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt that way.
I guess that they were using him as like comedic relief because otherwise the film would be pretty dour. Like, that first act in particular is really sort of down, as it should be. And I guess they tried to use him as a balancing thing to make it feel less imposing. But yeah, the comedy did kind of go all over the place. I liked the essence of what they were trying to do. I think that character kind of going into a depressed alcoholic state after his failure from the first movie is a good like place to take the character. And I did like some of like where his character goes once he's talking to his mother and all of that. I think like the character beats are okay, but the comedy kind of falls flat, and how it looks is the issue. I
would have actually been perfectly okay if they took that element a bit more seriously, because every time they were clearly trying to turn it into a joke, I'm like, this isn't that funny. Like if my friend turned into that, I'd be kind of sad. You know, like if this is a character tragic, you care about, it's not really that much of a joke, other than haha he's fat, which isn't much of a joke. Like haha Fortnite, I guess too. Yeah, it's just kind of sad.
It is sad. Yeah, which it would be cool if it was taken with a bit more seriousness, but you know what these Marvel movies are like. There's always like one casualty from the kind of humor. Every single time they do it, there's always one. Yeah, it's like they kind of betray the character almost just for the sake of the comedy. And I guess because the last Thor movie and how comedic that film was, they chose to do it with him.
Yeah, I don't know. It really depends what kind of movie you're is overall and how well it's going to fit. Because most of this movie is like super serious in a way.
It's like the way they handled Captain America and Iron Man in this is so well done. And they're obviously one of the larger characters. The main three are like Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like the way they handle those other two characters is so great, and Thor they don't know what to do with.
Yeah,
and they just keep changing it movie to movie.
Maybe because
it's just bad.
The film's focusing on trying to wrap up Iron Man and Captain America specifically because they clearly set up Thor for future stuff. So maybe they weren't as concerned with trying to give him like an emotional payoff.
It's going to be,
but they never do. They never give him anything.
I wouldn't say they don't give him anything. I just think it's a bumpy road to where he does go.
Yeah. So as somebody that never watched any of the previous Thor films, would you say his character is like consistent throughout or really inconsistent? Because you were kind of implying... Like, did they not try to do him as comedic relief at the beginning or what?
No,
he was fish out of water.
Okay,
fish
interesting.
Out of water, yeah.
So like Aquaman. Yeah. Bazinga.
Mm-hmm. The most epic movie of all time,
yeah. But literally with every one of those Thor movies. Yeah.
He became like the dumb one. Like a dumb surfer bro kind of character.
Well, that was another issue I had with the movie, was that whole section takes place within the second Thor movie, mostly agreed as being possibly the worst film in the entirety of the MCU.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So that on its own is kind of do we really have to go back to that? They kind of wrote themselves into a corner with that one because of how important they made it within their own universe.
Yeah.
And it's just unfortunate that film was so bad.
The Natalie Portman insert shots?
Yeah.
With her in like the bedroom? Ugh.
Mm-hmm.
That was deleted scenes, I think, from Thor 2.
That's funny.
Oh, really? So she wasn't even... She didn't even show up to.
No.
She didn't even
to
get
record anything
paid.
new.
Yeah.
Wow.
She probably
But, I mean,
didn't want to do it.
While that one wasn't the best, I thought out of all of the like fan servicey moments, some of them were pretty good, like payoffs.
Yeah.
The best one was probably the Hail Hydra one in the elevator. That was like a clever
Yeah,
spin
that was
on that.
really...
That was kind of
That was
funny.
clever.
I didn't mind that, but I didn't really consider that to be as much of a, like, hey, remember this sort of thing than a lot of the other things that happened. I felt like a lot of it was
The
just
callback to Guardians 2, or Guardians of the Galaxy 1, the opening credits, where they're like watching Star-Lord. That was fun.
I'm really not a big fan of just, like, references to previous moments of just being like, remember this? And I get it. It's like for the fans, but even if I'm a fan of something, I don't like that kind of thing, really.
They weren't just references, though. It was part of the plot.
I think
But
it was more
on a
loving.
story
I don't think
level,
it was quite
it fits.
cynical.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I thought the film was built from the ground up from being like this ultimate like fan respect. So here you go. Here is some kind of payoff for the investment of like watching 22 movies or whatever it was.
Yeah, by the end of it.
There are cynical things like that in there, though. Like when Tony Stark gives his daughter the Iron Man mask, like the
Yeah.
toy one. It looks like a toy, and I assume there's probably a toy of that in Target or something.
I'm sure. Also,
Yeah.
she wasn't great. I didn't think she did a good job.
No, but she was barely in it too.
I know. She was in it at some important parts where
She was
it probably
cute
would have
movie
helped
kid.
to have a better child actor, like his funeral. You
Sure.
know, your dad's dead. You're just, I mean,
We haven't even mentioned the time travel, which is kind of an issue.
I'm just waiting for that because that's gonna take
yeah,
a while.
did it bug you, Ralph, at all, or
No,
were you okay
It
with
was
how
goofy
they...
as hell. I loved it. Where else could they go from here? Honestly, time travel. That was great.
No, I'm okay with the
It was
concept of
goofy as
time
fuck.
travel, but to me, they literally about a third of the movie is dedicated to like expositional scenes of them explaining how the time travel works, but then they don't even properly adhere to their rules.
Yeah, I
Right?
wouldn't even say they spent very long
Yeah.
explaining it at all, but they did have pretty clearly defined
Really?
rules. No, yeah, I mean it was
yeah,
like
I didn't feel the exposition was that bad.
yeah, they mentioned
felt
it
like it was
very
being explained.
briefly at several different points of just like the core rules that you need to understand. First was, justifying why they can't kill baby Thanos and being like, no, but your timeline, it creates a new timeline and it doesn't affect this current timeline. When you go back and change something, you've created an alternate path. And then later Tilda Swinton is saying, yeah, but if you remove one of the Infinity Stones that keep the universe in balance, you've removed it from this timeline, and so you got to put it back, or else we're just bad things in general are going to happen. And I'm going to show you a scary graphic, and just imagine all the bad things that will happen. So you got to do this. And then, yeah, you're right. They do not follow those rules at all. Which, I mean, when it comes to time travel in movies, I am perfectly okay with it not making actual sense in the real world, because that's inevitable. Like, time travel into the past is not possible as far as we know, unless you're talking about some random molecular quantum thing that somebody wrote a study on that you can find on the internet. But like, I mean, not in the way that they're ever going to show it in a movie. So all I ask is that you have rules or you don't have rules, but if you do have rules, stay consistent with them and don't betray them. Like, you have the freedom to create whatever rules you want, and they did. And the rules were an excuse for why you couldn't do other things. So why did you break those rules at the end? Not just at the end, but like somewhat throughout.
Yeah, it was dumb. I didn't care though.
For me, it was an issue
logic
because
out the window at that point.
these Marvel movies have always been based in like these incredibly simplistic stories, right? And it's always been about character. And this is the first time, like, it's so complex. There are little forums everywhere. Everyone's arguing about like the rules and how it works. And I don't think, like, if that's the takeaway from the movie, that's kind of an issue when it was supposed to be about the characters and finishing them off. I don't think it ruined the movie completely, but you do have to do the thing where you switch your brain off and try and not talk about it because it's just so immensely complex to try and wrap your head around.
Well, it's just so goofy. I wasn't trying to like work out the plot holes. I'm just going with this at this point.
I mean, the issue is that they stated those rules as kind of a way
And not
to
just
explain.
once, they keep reiterating it.
They do.
Definitely
And they break
hammered it into our heads in a way where you can't help but think about it. You know, you can't help but keep that in mind because they put that in your mind. So when it contradicts itself, it's like, but why? I thought you said this.
It's just, it's not what I want to be thinking about in this like epic conclusion finale, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But then the last third of the film, they kind of leave the time travel aspect behind, and it just becomes fucking craziness. Just shooting and Pegasuses and everyone.
Spider-Man
nuts.
riding on a
Spider.
It's absolutely
there was some
crazy.
fun stuff. I really enjoyed the end battle, but
I feel
guess
like the whole movie is just fan service, but good fan service, respectful, well made.
I don't know if you agree with me or not, but I feel like despite the time travel not really being present in that last battle, the fact that it was present before kind of hurt it a little, because this isn't even the Thanos that knows any of these characters. He's just some guy, and they want to stop him, and he has the same goals, but he doesn't know who they are, and I feel like it's a lot less emotionally impactful. Because he doesn't even know who he's fighting. Like, it's not just... I wish that there was a fight scene between the Thanos that thought he won, like that experienced
himself. Well, he does know, because he saw all the footage.
No, he knows that somebody else that is him won, but somebody who experienced the actual events of the previous film is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, I feel like there isn't as much of an emotional impact for me, and they could have written it differently, but I don't know. Like, it depends on what people really want out of it, I guess. It's just, that's what I would have wanted.
There's another elephant in the room we need to bring up that really robbed a lot of suspense for me away from the movie, and that was the pointless inclusion of Captain Marvel.
Yep.
I think she's such a bad character.
Yep.
And they kept talking about how great she was the whole movie.
And then she fucked off.
Wow, isn't she so cool?
For 90%. I've got other planets to save.
And in that insane fight at the
Deus
end,
Ex Machina at the end, she just fucking destroys the ship.
Yeah,
I'm back.
As soon as those cannons pointed up in the sky, I rolled my eyes and was like, oh, I guess all their problems are solved then. She's here.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's really annoying.
Because that was like, that was a point of tension for me. I was like, how are the Avengers going to deal with this looming threat above them? It's this huge ship that's so vast. And I was like, this is going to be fun to watch how they take this down. It's like, no, Captain Marvel can just fly through
Boom.
it. and it's over. Yeah. It's so lame to me, and her inclusion is like she's so irrelevant really to the story. She only exists so she can save Tony Stark at the beginning and then save them at the end. Aside from that, her character is pointless. She's got no fun interactions. Her character isn't built in any way. She's pointless.
Well,
Why did they choose to add her?
They shot all of her stuff before the Captain Marvel movie, so they didn't really want to write anything for her because they didn't want to step on the other creators' toes.
I think she just shouldn't have even been in this universe at all.
The film treats her as if
honestly,
she's like this weight. Where she's like, we have to do everything in our power to make sure she is gone as quickly as possible because she's so overpowered that we can't structure scenes with consequence with her being there.
Exactly. Yeah. And even when she's there, it's like you could just fly out away from the planet with the gauntlet. If you don't want Thanos to have it, you could just get out of the fucking atmosphere. His ship's destroyed. You already destroyed it. Why don't you leave? He won't be able to fly and come get you. You don't want him to use the gauntlet, right?
I saw someone counterpointing this argument by saying something like, well, Doctor Strange is really overpowered. Why doesn't he just create a little portal over Thanos' arm and cut it off or something?
But then the Infinity Stones would be in some random place. You want to make sure that some superhero has it. You don't know who's going to pick it up.
No, he just means cut the arm off, I guess.
Oh, that too?
I don't know. But the point was, Doctor Strange actually has an interesting gimmick. His powers are fun to watch. They're creative. They do lots of fun things with him and his chemistry with the other characters. That's what makes him interesting. The powers at that point aren't even important. But Captain Marvel, what is fun about just watching this invincible creature just flying around, smashing through ships?
Literally nothing.
It's just
there's no chemistry with anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the most
such an issue to me.
Strong, I'm strong and stronger than everybody and I can do anything, and then add that with zero charisma, just unlikable character.
She would honestly be a better villain than a hero.
Yeah.
She would actually be really difficult to take down for the Avengers.
Yeah.
Yeah, she acts like a villain.
Yeah, she's so cocky.
Yeah.
Brie Larson played a good villain in Scott Pilgrim. She was like the ex-girlfriend.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's what she's good as, like the bitchy ex-girlfriend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
Captain
really,
Marvel, everyone.
It's really unfortunate because I don't know if it seems like they kind of just forced her into this story by the very end of it. Like she wasn't around at all, and the entire Captain Marvel movie was them basically just justifying this idea that like she's been here this whole time, and also she's the most important. It's been this way forever,
Yeah.
and it's like if you want to make a Captain Marvel movie, fine, do it. You should have done it after Endgame, though. Like, you should have had her... If you want to do her in the Marvel Universe, just do it after all the really important shit that people care about right now. Because otherwise, you're just kind of forcing her in. And it really did seem forced.
Yeah.
But they also didn't
a movie
do a
that's
good job.
already very long.
They didn't do a good job of actually introducing her in the movie. It's so built on the back of the knowledge that you've already seen Captain Marvel, but I went with some friends who hadn't seen Captain Marvel, so to them, just this random person showed up who was invincible and just saved the day.
Oh, yeah.
It's
it does not work well as a standalone film, unfortunately, and that's part of the reason why I don't love it, is like, that's kind of what I'm looking for. I loved Infinity War. I really did. I enjoyed it quite a lot.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Like after I finished Infinity War, I was like, I could happily watch that again. But after seeing this one, I was like, okay, I enjoyed many parts of that. But I don't want to rush back to see it, partially because it's so long and because the pacing isn't
Way
great.
too long.
I was desperate to check my watch at points.
It wastes a lot of time, and that's something that Infinity War did not do.
Yeah, I rewatched Infinity War last week. It's fucking great. Not
it's
great,
very
but
well
like
paced.
in terms of everything it had to accomplish, it does it all.
Yeah.
And the pacing is like super smooth. It doesn't feel its length at all. And this, it feels its length. Certainly. I wouldn't say it's boring, but...
Because they have to spend so much of the movie just explaining how and why the movie can happen.
Yeah. Did you enjoy, like, the first third of the film with, like, the darker character development stuff? Because I enjoyed all that stuff.
I like that, but I wish there was a bit more.
Point. I thought there was just enough there, honestly. I was shocked there was that much in there. The first hour of this movie is pretty, like, dour, and there's no action, really. It's just, like, characters dealing with shit.
Yeah.
And I like that.
I didn't mind that at all. Somebody left a really interesting comment that I very much agree with, saying that they wish that there was more attention put on the actual world, the actual universe of, like, what are the consequences of half of people just disappearing one day? Like, I want to understand all that shit. Like, that would make for a really good...
There's so much other stuff going on in the movie. They can't focus on that.
No, I get that, but I would actually disagree with Alex in the sense that, like, I don't feel like they spent very long explaining how all this shit worked, but I do feel like they wasted a lot of time just dicking around in time travel anyway. Like, the whole thing was like, now it's a heist movie, kind of. And Thor's sequence with Rocket Raccoon, like, they took as long as possible to get their stone. Like, that was such a big waste of time. That was such a boring scene.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much of that.
That should have been cut down a lot.
The entire time travel thing should have been cut down, but it was just a bunch of references for the fans that, like, if you're the biggest Marvel fan, if you love every movie, you love the universe a lot more than I do, then you're probably having a blast. But for me, I'm just like, I get it. I understand the references, even though I'm not even a hardcore fan. Like, there's probably some more subtle ones that I didn't.
It wasn't just references, though. It's not just
felt
references.
like that for me.
It's part of the story. Half of the thematic point of the movie is, like, these characters go back in time and confront these things from their past and deal with them and move on. Like Captain America going back to the 50s and Robert Downey Jr. met his dad.
I know.
Like, all that shit. That's not just dumb
bits,
references. Yeah.
There
are dumb references in there, but I feel there's way more stuff that's at service of the story here.
That's fair.
The time travel segment wasn't that dumb to me.
It was very long.
It was too long.
Way too long.
Thor should not have gone to Thor 2. They should have made up, like, another scenario for him to go to. Because, like, the stuff with Thanos, that was all pre-Guardians. Like, it was just a made-up era. They could have gone there. Or done something like that.
How do you feel about all the massive plot convenience in Nebula's little expedition?
Yeah, there's a lot of plot convenience there.
Yeah.
But Nebula was
around
actually
her character.
pretty interesting. Yeah.
How so?
I enjoyed Nebula, actually.
How so?
How so? Like, they actually developed her and did stuff with her this time around, which was nice.
Go on. I want to
They
hear.
made
I want to
her
hear
like
what you have
the
to say about
hero
it.
figure. Usually it's Gamora taking on that position, and this time Nebula like took the reins and kind of saved the day. She was one of the most vital parts of the mission. I enjoyed that.
Didn't she screw the day?
Yeah,
Right?
it was
Yeah,
her
well, she
fault.
screwed-
Her fault that all goes
It
wrong.
was her fault.
Well,
That
it's not her fault.
any
She
of
gets
this happened.
captured. She gets captured. It's not
Yeah,
her
she
fault.
let herself get captured. She could have just went back to the future. She could have just pressed the button, but she didn't.
Okay, we can... whatever.
Well, I mean, it's all her fault.
movie's so
She
long,
just
I don't
decided to
remember.
hang out there. Like, oh no, he knows. It doesn't matter if he knows. This is a different timeline. Go back. But she didn't.
Okay.
So, I mean, none of the bad shit would have happened if that didn't happen. And then she
Yeah.
teleported the ship back into the future, even though they already very clearly explained that they only had enough Pym particles to go back. But they sent the 2014 Nebula back. So I don't know how they, like, she just stuck her hand into the time machine. Either they got more Pym particles somewhere, which doesn't make sense. Like, I know Iron Man got them from the 70s, but they explained it as though
Yeah.
you need Pym particles to also be on the
Mhm.
thing that you're traveling through time. Like, there weren't any extra Pym particles on Thanos' ship, but he got there. And so it's like, okay, well, if you don't need Pym particles on whatever you're transporting, then theoretically, couldn't current Nebula have just stuck her circuitry into the time machine and then warped the Infinity Stones there? Why'd you even have to go there and pick them up if this is what you can do?
This is what I mean. I just don't want to be thinking about that kind of thing when I'm just trying to enjoy
Yeah,
the finale.
It's really difficult not to for me.
Well, yeah, no, I'm the same. That's what bogged the movie down for me.
It wasn't for me.
Ah,
Okay,
That's
now
fine.
what?
well, I mean, I guess, Alex, you saw my review. Ralph, did you?
No, I didn't. Not yet.
That's fine.
You posted it last night, right?
Yeah, yesterday.
Mhm.
I know we kind of, like, Alex, you and I, we mentioned how the time travel consistency doesn't really make sense. And I'm sure because we didn't really thoroughly go into it, we don't have to spend too long on it, but we should at least mention some examples. I'm sure that if we don't, there will be people that are going to say, like, no, it makes perfect sense. You just didn't think about it.
Yeah.
Like, when they clearly define that you're creating separate timelines when you change something, right? So Captain America goes
Mhm.
back with all 6 Infinity Stones. He would have to go back to 4 different timelines. And even if we assume that he's able to
Yeah.
just imagine which timeline to go to through the power of his suit in one trip, which is very weird to think about, like, to try and coordinate.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of just shows up at the end on the bench, and the film was implying, which I realized after a while because I didn't think they were because it's so stupid. The film was implying that he stayed in the past and then just waited on the bench for the events to take place so that he could surprise everybody. But if he stayed in the past, that wouldn't be their past. That would be a different timeline. That was the entire justification for why you couldn't kill baby Thanos, but now you're just in
Didn't-
the past in general.
No,
Isn't
he
it
put all the
implied-
gems back.
He puts them back and then he lives with Peggy, right?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
he didn't jump back. He's
Those
not
are
wearing the suit, I don't believe. And either way, he's not
No.
on the platform. You needed the platform to come back. The film was implying that he stayed there. And I thought he jumped back
Yeah.
too, because this is ridiculous. What the film is actually implying, what most people believe that it's implying. It's actually ridiculous, and I didn't think that was the case, but now I realized eventually that is what it's implying, that he literally stayed in the past and then just sat
Yes.
down for a while, and that's the past.
And waited for them.
Because he didn't come
Yeah.
back to the platform. He would have come back to the platform. He was on the bench.
No, but he didn't.
He
That-
lived
he
his
had, like,
life,
a
but he
time-
knew where the bench was going to be. So
Yeah.
he went to
Yeah,
the bench.
so he went to it.
So
So he
when they were
stayed
there.
in the past. He
Yeah.
never warped back. But he shouldn't
Yeah,
be in the
He
past.
stayed in the
He
past.
never
He,
warped
he
back.
shouldn't be in the past, though. He should be in a different timeline. And then some people are saying,
No,
but what if
because
every
he stayed
version
in
of...
that timeline and just put the gems back? It's the same timeline.
No, that's... No, it's not. As soon
He
as
put
you...
the gems-
No. I've went back and I've made sure when I made my review, I spent
It's
so
just
fucking
like,
long.
I don't even care
Well,
about any
if
of
you
this
don't
shit.
care about it, then why are you arguing against me? If you don't care about
Okay.
it, then why are you arguing as though what I'm saying is untrue?
I don't know.
When you put the stones back, it just means that bad things won't happen in that universe and that it won't be out of balance. But you're still creating a new timeline. If that wasn't the case, if it was if by putting a stone back meant, oh, it's the same timeline again now, then they could just kill baby Thanos. right? You wouldn't need the stones. That was their entire justification. They said, if you go back in time and kill baby Thanos, no stones were even mentioned at this point. If you go back in time and kill baby Thanos, regardless of stones, it would be a different timeline and it wouldn't affect the current timeline that you're in. You would create a new timeline. That's what they said.
Is the idea that he stayed in the current timeline while the Captain America from the first Avengers and all the other movies was doing his thing at the same time, but you just avoided him?
Yeah, that's basically what it's implying, I guess. He literally just stayed there and he never came back, but he's somehow in the same timeline. And then other people are saying like, oh yeah, what if every version of yourself does the same thing? But then if that was the case, then you could still just kill baby Thanos. Like,
it's so confusing.
It would have made perfect sense if he decided to go back in time, live his life, and then maybe his like wife died and he was like, okay, yeah, I'm done. And then came back and he appeared back on the platform because he warped back and said, I lived a happy life. But instead they wanted to make it more like, I guess, cinematic and just him on the bench. And like, that's fine and all, but it comes at the expense of the logic. And for the people that are thinking about the logic, it doesn't help.
Right, but it heightens the emotion, and that's
not for me.
The more important thing. Sure. But for most people, it's a comic book silly thing. I don't think about the logic of it that much.
I wanted it to be a comic book silly thing. If this same thing happened in Shazam, then I'd be like, whatever.
The fact that,
but the whole movie isn't a comic book silly
thing. He was
an
old man was perfect.
Yeah, but here's what I have that's an issue about what you just said is you're like, oh, it's a comic book silly thing, it doesn't matter. But nowhere in that scene is it treating itself like a comic book silly thing. It's treating it as a poignant, emotional wrap up to this character's arc, right? It's very serious. It's very serious. So you can't just brush it off as like, oh, it's just a comic book silly thing.
The tone of it is very exaggerated. So Captain America's sitting there on the bench. Yes, it's not realistic. There's not the most logical thing that could happen. But for what fans want, which is those two characters interacting and having a nice moment, it's the best possible thing they could have written. And that's what they did. It's the most satisfying the whole movie is basically fan service. Very well made, well written, well acted fan service. And so if they want to reward the fans in that way, I think that's better.
You're acting like there's no other way they could have done it. I feel like I respect...
Okay, how that's the way they chose to done it, and I was fine with that.
I respect what the moments that worked well enough to imagine a scenario where he could have still warped back, and it could have been just as emotional. Like I think they totally could have pulled that off.
No matter what you do, the time travel is going to make no sense. I think no matter what you do, it's going to make no sense.
As long as they follow their own rules,
except Primer.
As long as they follow their own rules. Time travel does not make sense in any movie, including Primer, including 12 Monkeys. There's so many things that don't make sense about time travel. Just follow your own rules.
Yes.
That's all I want. Mm-hmm. Why have rules in the first place if you don't follow them?
Yeah. There's never like a scene like in Looper, for example, where they're like, look, listen, we know this makes no sense. It's like the opposite. The film knows how annoying people find like time travel tropes and all the rules of it. And it keeps hammering home how it needs to matter and make sense. But then they don't really do it properly. Yeah. It's really weird.
Yeah. It's got so many different versions of characters and timelines and things it has to do that at the expense of logic, it just does things to, simplify it. Or heighten the emotion of it, and I'm fine with that. That didn't bother me throughout the entire thing. I think a movie where you got like Pegasus is flying around and raccoons shooting people, I'm not thinking too hard about the time travel logic of it.
It's certainly frustrating.
And it was completely inconsistent, and I take points off for it too, but it didn't ruin the experience, and I wasn't sitting there the entire time trying to figure out like, the time travel. Oh,
you did?
Well, I probably would, yeah.
Okay, well then we agree.
It doesn't make any sense. It's goofy. I'm not going to, I agree with you. It's just, for me, it doesn't ruin the experience for me.
It didn't ruin the experience for me either. I mean, like, if let's say there was something more to offer during those points, then, for me personally, then it wouldn't really affect me that much. But unfortunately, I was just frustrated because it was the only thing I could think about because I'm not really like I'm not super invested in this universe like you are. I haven't watched as many Marvel films as you. And again, the part of the reason why I enjoyed Infinity War is because it was a great standalone movie, and this just wasn't. This was really relying on you to be super, super invested in everything that was happening already.
On a filmmaking level, Infinity War is a better movie, but I think this movie's trying a lot more, and it has to satisfy a lot more people. And I think in terms of what they were doing, this is probably one of the better ways you could have handled it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't want people to think I'm getting like so hung up on the time travel shit that it's like, oh, if it was more consistent, then I would have given this movie a 10 out of 10. That's not how it works. Yeah. I felt overall like the biggest issues with it were its pacing, its tone, and just like it didn't really have much to offer me overall. There were moments and scenes that I really liked, but it was just so slow and felt like a lot of time was wasted, unfortunately.
Yeah. I have those same complaints, just not as like I'm not as negative. I don't feel as negative about it. I still like this movie, and I still think it does a lot of good things as a fan of these movies as well. It's not as technically well made as a lot of them are.
Mm-hmm.
Not even Infinity War. It might be the worst. It's not the worst Avengers movie. Age of Ultron is. But
no, it's not.
Of course not.
Yeah, what it does right, it does do very right. I think it does the main characters you want to see their ends of, like justice. I think that's exactly what any fan would want to see. The way they treat Iron Man and Cap in particular, that's like perfect. I don't see how it could be any more perfect. But the time travel stuff does kind of... It's just like a little thing in the back of my mind when I'm watching it that I really don't want to be thinking about, but the film forces you to think about. That's my only issue with it.
Yeah. And, I mean, I'm just a person that does not give a shit about Iron Man or Captain America, so... it's I don't think anybody should be surprised. It's real. I think it's pretty consistent with the other reviews I've given on Marvel. I gave Infinity War a 6. Really loved it. Give this one a 5.
Mm-hmm.
Captain Marvel was a 4. It's in between those two movies. Makes sense.
Captain Marvel, I didn't even see.
Oh, really?
No.
Yeah, you didn't miss much.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like I missed much from her in this movie.
So. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she just had a different haircut. Also, 5 years later, right? So the movie jumps 5 years. Like, what happened with Peter Parker in high school and all that? Is he still in high school?
At the end of the movie, he, like, hugs his friend. But I was, like, I had that moment where I was like, wait, shouldn't most of you be graduated? But it never showed whether or not his friend also got Thanos. So perhaps in the next Spider-Man movie, if let's say it takes place after those events, we can just assume that everybody that is a part of Far From Home just got Thanos and then came back. Or maybe they'll address it. Maybe he'll have friends that are like 5 years older. Who knows?
Well, this new one takes place before Infinity War.
Okay. But whatever, let's say whatever they do after that point.
Yeah, whatever they do after.
Right. Perhaps they'll include that and be like, oh, half of my friends are like 5 years older. I don't see why they wouldn't.
Yeah. It's just a weird thing to have to deal with now. That all of these characters they're either 5 years older or they've been gone for 5 years and they have to like adjust to the world. It's just weird.
Did Hawkeye's wife, did her cell phone plan continue on for 5 years after she died?
Maybe she used the house phone. The house phone. Because Hawkeye kept the house.
Okay, but the house phone was still
he's still playing
under her name on his cell phone. It was he's named his house after his wife because he misses her so much.
Honestly, like I don't really want any more Marvel movies now. It felt so conclusive.
Me too.
That's it. It felt like that's the end. But
what else is there to do?
That's the thing. Well, now they own X-Men, they'll probably do like a whole X-Men thing.
Right?
Yeah. Next Avengers movie, which will be a while from now, I bet.
Good luck casting Wolverine.
Next Avengers will have X-Men in it. Yeah.
Well, it's like look what Avengers would be left now: Black Panther, Spider-Man, Captain Marvel, and
Guardians. Thor.
Doctor Strange.
The Guardians and Thor. I suppose that's okay with Guardians and Thor.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just
it's not a pretty good lineup.
It's not the same though. They don't have the core.
No.
I just feel like this film is to a point in that final battle sequence. It was like, I don't think it can get any more grand than this. Like, it's nearly hurting my head. Like, in how
it'd be odd if they
over the top and
attempted
just
it.
how much shit is on. Yeah, because like to me, that final fight was at its best when it was just Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor fighting Thanos. That was the best like action to me out of that whole sort of sequence. Because it has like I don't care about just big armies. I didn't mind it, but it was nearly. It was very nearly. The needle was just about to go into. This is hurting my head. There is so much happening on screen.
I'm sure you had flashbacks to Ready Player One too, but like those
Ready Player
characters
One,
all
Man of
sucked,
Steel.
and there was no build up to that. Like this had 10 years of build up to it, and I understood who all these people were, so I was okay with like craziness at the end. Like it felt warranted. I would feel disappointed if it wasn't anything but that.
Everybody was edging for a decade.
Yeah.
I just get sick of like big armies of like just minions with no personality.
Right.
I always like that's what I liked about Infinity War as well. Like the fight scenes with Thanos, they were all based around character, whereas just the Avengers fighting monsters to me is not interesting.
Which the end of Infinity War had that, and that's probably
and that's the part I didn't like. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, although I like this fight at the end better.
Yeah, I like parts of it, man.
I think we should probably wrap up our Infinity War discussion. Is that fine?
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I thought it was a good payoff for... I've seen every one of these Marvel movies, and I was really curious to see what they were going to do to wrap it all up. And I did feel satisfied despite my gripes. I don't think the pacing was there. I don't think just the overall structure of the film was quite as rewarding as Infinity War. Like the way they matched all the characters together and the action scenes in that movie, like and the way they were drip-fed throughout, made that really fun to watch all the way through. And the payoff took way longer in Endgame, but by the time you did get it, I did feel like it was just for all of the main crew and the characters I cared about, so I gave it a 7 out of 10.
I liked it a lot. I'll give it a 3 out of 5. Everything you guys said, there's lots of dumb plot stuff, but the character stuff, except for Thor, was all good, and the conclusions of Captain America and Iron Man were pretty perfect. I can't imagine it being handled any other way, so good job. Considering it's a 3-hour-long movie with 80 characters and fucking tons of explosions, and most of this movie is CGI. The fact
it's not a mess
well
is
done.
astonishing, yeah.
It's not a mess, yeah. I just want to mention the music briefly. It was a little overbearing, melodramatic. They could have cut a lot of it out, and I feel the movie would have been better or the same.
I never really felt that. I thought that the music was kind of an improvement from Marvel films in general, because like with this and the previous
the more emotional stuff,
I felt like there was a theme. I felt like maybe somebody at Marvel watched Every Frame of Paintings video on the Marvel Symphonic Universe, and like was like, you know what?
I'm sure they
we
did
can have a theme now. And there was, it played and it got reincorporated, and I was like, oh, this is nice.
That theme's been there a long time.
I know,
used
but
it's always been
maybe it's just finally memorable now.
Now they incorporate it more, for sure. Yeah,
more appropriately used.
Right. You're right about that. They've now brought it to the forefront. Like, this is the Avengers theme.
Mm-hmm.
And they also using the Guardians method of just using music that already exists.
Yeah, there were some nice soundtrack choices.
Yeah,
I
that
think.
helps.
Yeah, that helps too. That gives it a little more personality.
Yep, didn't hate it.
Thanks, James Gunn.
Better than Captain Marvel. Not as good as Infinity War. 5 out of 10. There's some parts I loved, some parts that frustrated me, a lot of boring shit that I didn't care about. I'm not a big fan of Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a movie for me. It's a movie for the fans. I'm not a fan. So.
There we go.
There you go.
We did it.
We did it.
Oof.
Congrats, Marvel.
Holy moly.
Yeah, and that's the last Stan Lee cameo, too. He had a pretty good one.
Is it?
I believe he's done after this. Yeah, that's the last one they filmed.
It would be
Yeah, I
appropriate.
read that too.
I don't think they should do any more. I don't think they should CG him in, like,
Oh,
doing
no,
a dance
please,
or
no.
whatever. Whatever they do with him.
Oh god, no.
Speaking of intellectual properties that Disney purchased for billions of dollars, Star Wars.
Nice! Transition.
We watched
But this is before they
Star
bought
Wars
it.
movies.
This is when George Lucas owned it.
Yeah. The high point of Star Wars. You want to this was the recommendation. You want to introduce it?
Yeah, this is my movie.
Yeah.
It's a better point. So, spoilers for Star Wars Episode 3.
And
Revenge
1
of
and
the
2,
Sith.
I guess. I mean,
I think, and 1 and 2. All of them. We're going to spoil all of them.
The
but I'm
prequels,
sure
basically,
you've all... Yeah. And the new ones, too. I'm sure we're going to talk about every single Star Wars
I don't
movie.
know how much we're going to say about the new ones, but...
Well, like, back and forth we'll go. Like, oh, Darth Vader is Luke's father. Like, we're going to spoil that, you know.
I mean, those aren't the new ones.
Whatever. So, 3 years into the Clone Wars, the Jedi rescue Palpatine from Count Dooku. As Obi-Wan pursues a new threat, Anakin acts as a double agent between the Jedi Council and Palpatine and is lured into a sinister plan to rule the galaxy.
Is this just the opening crawl?
Yeah, that's just the description on IMDb.
Oh, okay.
And the reason I'm reading it in that plane of a voice is because I feel that's the tone of the whole prequel trilogy.
Yeah.
It's just like George Lucas fucking explaining it.
Yeah.
And it's so boring.
When actors are communicating in the movie, they feel like robots or aliens.
That's how everyone talks in the movie.
There's
no
so
humanity. It's
annoying.
bizarre.
It's so annoying.
This is a problem with all of them.
One of the points that to the best of my memory, was actually acknowledged in the Plinkett review is how Samuel L. Jackson is such an animated, loud character in every other movie that he's been in. He's always yelling and swearing. Like, that's his thing. In this movie, he's just like, the Emperor, blah, 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 blah. It's just so boring.
He's totally miscast.
So boring.
He has this amazing energy, Samuel L. Jackson, and he doesn't use it at all in this movie.
He can't.
It's
Nobody
so
Could have been like
bad.
a bounty hunter or something. Why are stoic Jedi such bad casting?
There are only 2 performances that are good in this entire trilogy, and it's Ian McGregor and the guy who plays Palpatine. I forgot his name. But those 2 actors are killing it. I enjoy them a lot.
They both seem to understand what movie they're actually in as well.
Yeah. And they really care about their characters. Like, Ian McGregor, like,
Ewan?
tried to replicate...
You keep saying Ian.
You know me and names. But, like, he was trying to replicate Alec Guinness and, like, his accent. It was perfect. He really cared.
I think
Palpatine
he's the
was
perfect choice. I don't know if his dialogue is quite perfect, though. He's trying his best to the absolute, like, garbage he has to say.
There are lines that he gets through sounding good, though.
Yeah,
I think Hayden Christensen has some okay line deliveries in this one, in the third one.
I don't know. Hayden
Well, he's, like,
Christensen
angrier.
reminded me of Jaden Smith the entire time. I'm not even kidding. I was like, this is Jaden Smith acting.
You just get the vibe that it was really awkward on set. Like, George Lucas is notorious for how bad he is at directing actors, and it really shows. I think it's the biggest issue with the 3 prequels is the direction. They are so bland, and they just don't feel like people. I think George Lucas is like an ideas man, and he needs people to refine his ideas and present them in a way that's actually interesting to watch.
Mm-hmm. And the editing, too, is just so boring. Like, the dialogue scenes are so boring how they're cut and shot. Just everything.
Everything's fucking boring. You know, like, when I started watching I watched the 3rd movie first. Because that was the one that I was for sure going to watch. And I watched all 3 of them.
Yeah.
And I was about an hour and 20 minutes through it. I was having a miserable fucking time. And I was just like, God fucking damn it, Ralph. What did you expect? Why are we watching this? Like, why are we watching? Oh, yeah, it's been long enough that we feel like, oh, yeah, maybe we'll give it a second chance. Well, there's a reason why we don't remember anything about them. Because nothing fucking happens. Right? It's one of those.
It's your Gene Dealman.
Yeah, exactly. So now I don't feel any guilt about that whatsoever.
Yeah, good.
You've made me watch this shit. Alex made me watch Madagascar 2, so you guys fucking deserve it.
Yeah. Well, I genuinely wanted to reconsider this movie, because this movie does have a fandom behind it. There are people who think this movie is good. Like, it's actually George Lucas, honing in his skills and becoming a good director.
It's a lore movie.
Because we talk about George Lucas like he's a hack, but he's made good movies in the past. American Graffiti is a good movie. THX 1138 is a good movie. And Star Wars is a good movie.
Yeah, what he
and
did
he's
with
produced
Star Wars.
tons of other great movies.
Yeah.
It's just he forgot, I think. I don't know what happened,
He
but
took
he can't
an
make a
armchair
movie for his life
director
anymore.
approach. He was very involved in the computer animation renaissance, or whatever you want to call it. Like, I was actually watching a documentary on Pixar for my 2007 list called The Pixar Story. It was actually really informative, and George Lucas was in it quite a bunch. And one of the things that I actually considered because of watching this documentary so closely to watching the Star Wars prequels is that the first ever computer animated feature film was Toy Story, and that was what, like 95? Right?
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
4 years before the release of The Phantom Menace. So literally the first computer animated feature film got released, and at that moment George Lucas is like, yeah, we can do that with actors, and like
Well, he was trying
Already.
to be groundbreaking in the same way Star Wars was.
Exactly.
When Star Wars
I
came
know,
out, no one
but
had ever done that
it's just
before.
it's not there
and
yet.
he,
It's not
right,
there
no,
yet.
you're
The
totally right. It
technology-
doesn't work. But he
It's
thought, like,
episode
I can
one
take
looks
CGI
so
and use it to make
bad.
these new worlds.
Oh,
And he didn't. He totally failed. The aliens look bad. They look like fucking cartoons.
it looks so bad.
And like his ambitions, it was way ahead of what was the technology was
What
capable
was
of
possible?
at the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what was possible. By this one though, by episode 3, I think the effects get a lot better. I don't think they're great. I think they're
They're
inconsistent,
improved.
but
It's like
they're-
6 years
they're
later or some
improved,
shit.
right? And I
Too
can buy
heavily
into
a
them if
reliance
there was
on
a
it,
good
though.
story.
The reliance was so heavy on them, like the clone
Yeah.
characters. Every single one of them is CG for some reason.
Right.
it-
It's like, why aren't those
surely-
guys in suits?
Yeah, it would look so much better. It wouldn't look aged and horrible. And did you notice when they sort of superimpose people's faces on top of like the clone helmetless bodies? It looked really bizarre. And the same for
Yeah.
when some of the older characters are fighting, like Count Dooku at the beginning and the Emperor. They do this thing where they put like a CG version of their face over when they have a stunt double doing the action sequences.
Yeah.
And that is aged horrible. It looks really bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
So you were talking about like the pacing and the editing, and what I was going to mention is that when I was about an hour and 20 minutes through the movie, having a miserable fucking time, like I wanted to die basically. My roommate comes in and is like, yo, how long are you through this movie? And so I press the button on the remote, like the display button, just to show like how long we are through it. But I accidentally pressed the audio track button, and it changes to the described video for the visually impaired, where basically somebody narrated every action in the movie so that blind people can listen to it and get kind of the same experience. And then I just left it on. And then I watched the whole rest of the movie like that. I wouldn't have done it if it was a movie that I hadn't seen before. Like, I respect the podcast enough, but I've seen these movies already, so I finished the movie like that. It was a much more enjoyable experience. Not just because it was funny, but because you actually get a lot more context. Like, they say what planet you're on every time. It's like, cut to this planet. And they say every character's name. Like, and that's why I was able to watch the other two, because otherwise I wouldn't have. I literally would not have, because they're just so fucking boring.
Hilarious.
But it was so much more entertaining watching it with described video. And it was I got to hear every character's name several times. I found it hilarious that Anakin's mom is named Shmi.
Yeah,
Shmi.
Yeah, Shmi.
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 It was insane.
I find them funny enough without having to put other settings on like that.
There's
to be
so
honest.
much fucking wasted time. Like, between every line
There
of
is.
dialogue, the film is expecting that you'll be able to like soak things in a way and be like, oh yeah, this is all really like purposeful. Like these long shots of just like character line, wait for like 10 seconds and then respond. And there's plenty of time that was filled in just by the described video narrator. And as I was listening to just how much he was talking, I'm like, holy shit, there is a lot of dead air in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the biggest problems is just there's no tone.
Mhm.
No
Oh,
tone.
it's tone
Like, I
deaf,
don't
yeah,
know
it's
what I'm
totally
supposed to.
tone
Yeah,
deaf.
it's tone deaf. I don't know what I'm supposed to be feeling for
The
most
tone
of
is
it.
boring.
Most of it feels like kind of an objective view of like the history of this galaxy that doesn't exist.
It's
So
a
who
lore
gives a fuck?
movie. It's a lore movie for nerds.
Yeah. Right.
No, but the opening sequence is a good
ridiculous.
example of that, though, where it's got the jokey sort of droids and their goofy antics and them slipping over an oil,
Yeah.
and then literally a few
Really
minutes
bad.
later, Count Dooku gets his hands chopped off and he's decapitated. You know, it's just
Mhm.
swinging from such extreme like types of tone and humor and like drama is so bizarre. It just really doesn't work. I like the idea
Like,
of the
who's it made
beginning of the
for?
movie being more comedic and it gradually getting more serious, but it doesn't ease you into anything. It's so dramatic in a bad way with that kind of
No.
that juggling act they're trying to achieve.
Yeah, It's a movie where most of what's happening is just dumb political bullshit. I'm talking about the trilogy in general, I guess. But even the third one, like, it's just nothing happens until like the very end. And I can see why people like the third one the most, because something happens at the end. All the other movies, it's like, you watch through the whole fucking thing, it's like, what? Nothing happened. This entire 2+ hour movie.
Feel mostly pointless. I wanted to talk about the opening briefly of episode 3.
Sure.
Because Alex mentioned it. There was originally a lot more comedy in the opening. There's like tons of deleted scenes of like Obi-Wan and Anakin having like this banter. There's a part like Anakin's talking to BB-8, or not BB-8, I'm sorry, R2-D2 on the radio. And like he starts speaking R2-D2's language, like he's making beeping noises with his mouth. Hayden Christensen. It doesn't make any sense. And it's fucking real. I'll put it on the Reddit.
Dear.
Anyway, but yeah, I just wanted to mention that. They tried to really play up the comedy, and I guess they cut it out later on because they figured it didn't work.
None of it worked.
Again, going back to
nothing worked. Like, it's just so bad. I hate these movies so much. Like, they're the most boring fucking movies I could possibly watch. And I'm a guy that just watched through, like, Jean Dielman, you know? Like, I enjoyed that shit. There's nothing to soak in about these movies unless you're super, super, super invested in the universe already and you're looking for all the lore.
Yeah.
Like, you might as well just be reading through the Codex in Mass Effect. Like, oh, I want to know everything there is to know about this whole universe. But you can't just make a movie about that and be like, oh yeah, this is all the lore for the characters, but then not have any sort of like compelling narrative to go along with it.
Yeah. The first 2 movies feel mostly pointless, is the thing.
Incredibly.
Like, the only important thing that happens in the first one is that they get Anakin, and that Palpatine gets the trade route agreement. Right? That's like the only 2 things. Those are the only 2 things that happen.
So boring.
Those are the only 2 things that happen.
It's so boring.
It's so boring.
Because they're dedicated to just showing off special effects at the time. That's what all the Phantom Menace was. It was a platform for Lucas to show off his effects at the time, which isn't even impressive.
Did you like the pod race?
Terrible.
How did the pod race age?
Not well. I was able to I was able to enjoy it with the described video narrator, but that's about it.
Then Sebulba.
Now this is pod racing.
Exactly.
The thing about these movies too, I feel the fan community of Star Wars have given these movies so much longevity with like memes and making them funny and making them more interesting than they actually are. But like when you just look at them as movies, they're really bad movies.
They're terrible.
I think a lot of these fans just they more enjoy talking about them and the idea of them than the films
this was
themselves.
our generation's Star Wars as well, so it's our entire generation's like nostalgic attachment to them.
I didn't even like it when I was a kid. I was bored out of my fucking mind as a kid.
I liked all of them when I was a kid.
Huh.
When I grew up,
when
I'm like, this is awful.
I did. Yeah, I couldn't even get into it when I was young. Like, I was supposed to be the the right age for it, I guess. It's movies for babies about fucking space politics. But, like, I remember when I was, like, really young, I guess I would have been, like, 9 or 10 years old. My uncle gave me, like, the Star Wars Episode 1 VHS for my birthday or something, just thinking, like, oh, he's a kid who likes Star Wars, right? I was like, I don't like Star Wars. And now I just think about it every day. Like, oh, I was so rude. But I was a kid, so I didn't know any better. Just, like, remembering how I didn't even like Star Wars at all. Just, like, couldn't even accept the birthday present properly. I feel bad.
Are there any good parts to Episode 3? Anything you would say is good?
Yes. I would say yes.
Okay. I don't know.
One thing I love about every Star Wars movie is the like sound design, all the meaty, crunchy textures of everything, and the sounds of all the lasers and everything. I think they're so great.
I cannot
the score. While we're on the sound
agree
still,
with
the
the
score
sound
is
design.
fantastic.
The score is great for moments. Yeah, there were moments in the sound design watching through these original prequel movies. I have a pretty good sound setup, and I noticed a lot of really clunky sound design when it comes to like the I guess Foley work. Like there were some really, really cheesy bad sound effects for like simple actions that did not need them at all. Like someone will pick
I
up
mean
something and it's
more
just like
the sound effects.
Like the design of the sound effects.
Yeah, the design
There's, like,
of how
different
things
aspects of the
sound and yeah.
Like the
Mhm.
ships and the guns and all of that stuff is
to
really
some
cool.
extent, yeah.
Like Boba Fett's ship,
Bubba.
and it's not Slave One, but like Boba Fett's ship in the second Star Wars movie,
Mhm.
Attack of the Clones. The sound design of the lasers and the bombs on that thing was fucking cool. It was just a bad scene.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the score, of course.
The only the only thing that I kind of like about the movies are like some of the shots in space. They have like kind of like a purple color palette. I'm like, that looks interesting. And then that's about it.
Yeah.
That's about it.
I think like
honestly.
the concept art, like the designs of everything itself is pretty cool. The
Yeah, like the
planets and-
variety of the planets and all the different creatures
the
and stuff
aliens.
is fun.
I like the design of General Grievous. I just think he's a bad character, and I really don't like. What the fuck even was he? He just came out of nowhere in Episode 3, and they
Yeah,
never
he was
set
like
him
the
up
Captain
for anything.
Marvel, yeah.
Yeah.
He's in, like,
I
some
like
show,
how
but
all
come
that
on.
you had to do was just shoot him in the chest. Like, nobody thought about that.
Yeah.
You could just kill him by shooting him in the chest with a laser pistol. But all these Jedis are just
Yeah.
so opposed to using any sort of long-range weapons when they would really help at any point. You know, beginning of Episode 2, there's the
That's part of the issue to me. Was just the structure of the whole prequel universe just makes no sense to me. With how the
Right.
Jedi are part of this, like, they're almost like a private militia in a way that work with the government that also has an army, but they're like generals. It's so confusing the way they're implemented. when in the original movies they're like, yeah, Jedi's are all about peace, and they're kind of like a religion in a way, but they never really come across that way in the prequels. They more just are like a military force. They go out like to try and end wars, and they're on the battlefield in these movies, and it's all
they're
about
training
fighting.
child soldiers.
Yeah, it's like a weird mix.
Yeah,
There's a scene in this movie,
really
like
weird.
Hayden Christensen and Sam Jackson are talking, and it's like in this hangar. There's like military vehicles, I think, in the background.
Yeah.
But it's in the Jedi Temple. So I was like, what the fuck? What is this?
Yeah.
Why is
So then
this there?
it completely fucks them over when the army betrays them because
Yeah.
they're already so entangled with each other. they slaughter each other. It's so stupid.
Maybe that was Palpatine's plan? Like, mess up the Jedi Order by convoluting it with the military.
But it makes the Jedi
Industrial
seem
complex.
incompetent, though. They're supposed
Yeah,
to be
it's
these
just
like
so dumb.
revered, wise people, but
Yeah.
they just come across as these like stubborn, unlikable, horrible people that don't want to accept anyone or change their ways or
Mhm.
really enforce any of their ideals. They just kind of
And it's so overcomplicated, too. There's too many
they deserve what they
characters, and I
get.
feel like you could trim them down and have a simpler story that works better. There's like a bunch of Jedi characters that you're supposed to know that you don't at all, and then they just kill them and you don't know who they are. You're like, okay, I don't give a fuck about that guy.
I guess it's sad because they're action figures that you might own. Oh, that's Ki-Adi-Mundi, and he's dead now.
Again, yeah, if you've read the comics or read the books or have the action figures, then you know who they are. But I'm just watching the movie.
That is the main issue with the prequels. There's
Right.
there's no character drama, and just having them fight on a volcano to me it's not payoff because
Yeah.
you have no idea of Obi-Wan and Anakin's relationship. They should have used the first two movies to build up some kind of dynamic between the two, so there would actually be a tragedy to him falling.
They have
But you
no
never get that
I
sense.
think there was an attempt. I think there was an attempt at that, but George
They do
Lucas
the
is
show don't tell thing.
Yeah, and
They're just like, hey Obi-Wan,
the
remember that time I
dialogue-
saved you?
the dialogue kind of fucking sucks. Man, there's so much cringy dialogue. In these
What about
movies.
what about like the soap opera melodrama like love story that I think George Lucas was trying to be
Ugh.
sort of Shakespearean with?
You're so beautiful.
Yeah.
That's because I'm so in love. No, it's because I'm so in love with you.
I'm so in love with you.
Clap.
So love has blinded you?
I hate
Nothing is
sand.
worse than the sand. The
It's
the
rough
sand
and
is
coarse and grainy, and it gets everywhere.
In terms of the romance, it's better in 3 than 2. I'll give it that.
There's no romance. There's no fucking romance in this movie.
He also kills Padme at the end. which was nice.
I don't know what she sees in him after watching the first two movies again, especially. I don't know why you guys
I don't
didn't
either.
watch...
I don't see what anyone sees
like,
in anyone.
She falls in love with him as soon as he starts explaining how much of a fucking sociopath he is. He's like, yeah, why don't we just force people to agree with the government? She's like, aw, that's terrible, but I love you. And then he just rides around on some fucking cow creature, like torturing it, like, haha, this is cute. And she's like, haha, teehee, I'm falling in love. Like, what the hell does she see in him? And she, like, I don't know. Let's think about this for a fucking second. Like, she met him when he was like 10. She was already like an adult.
Yeah.
Like, even the actress, Natalie Portman, was an adult, basically. She was like 18 or something. She groomed him. Let's gender swap for a fucking second. How weird would that be if it was like a little girl and some dude... You know? It's a little weird.
Yeah, and they could have just not left that, like, they could have just cut out Phantom Menace entirely and started at episode 2, and none of that would have been weird.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I love
we
how
would have had
nobody
more
else
time
ages.
to develop their romance, too.
There's no consistency between the movies.
Anakin ages like 15 years, and everybody else ages 2.
Yeah.
It's like they do all the character development in between the movie.
And the characters,
and
they're
like
never
with
allowed
books
to...
and shit.
They're never allowed to show any passion or enthusiasm for anything because of the weird, stilted, awkward places they're forced to interact. They compare it to like the original and like all the emotional things they're put through, and it's like there's just nothing like that really in the prequel trilogy. It's like great, Anakin won the pod race, great, but what an emotional beat that was.
Yeah, he got to be free as a slave, and then he promised his mother that he'd come back and visit, and then he didn't. And then when he comes back, he's like, "Oh, she's dying right away, literally as soon as I come back."
Yeah. Revenge of the Sith actually makes Anakin seem like a really naive, dumb character. Like he's hanging out with Palpatine all the time, who's saying this really evil-sounding, suspicious stuff, and he just doesn't question it until he literally says, "Oh, by the way, I'm evil."
And they're supposed to sense it, too. They're Jedis.
Yeah.
And they're all hanging around in the same room, like going to fucking business meetings and shit. Like, you can't tell that this is like the most badass
basically.
Sith Lord of all time. You can't tell that this guy's like pure evil. You know? You're supposed to be able to know. I thought you had that sense.
And that is the one thing that makes the scenes of Palpatine pretty fun to me, is he's like the only character who loves what he's doing. He's like, just loves being evil.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's kind of
his
fun.
character.
It makes sense. His motivation is clear. He wants to take over the fucking universe, and he's evil. I'm like, okay, I understand who he is. What does Obi-Wan want, and what is he doing?
He has no character. He's got like no personality at all. His personality is just how you remember him. From the beginning,
it should have been, I want to train Hayden Christensen to be the greatest Jedi ever.
Yeah.
That should have been his motivation from day one, from the first minute of the first movie. And then it falls apart for him. It's like you can tell the story so simply and so much better. He's totally fucked it up. Talk about dropping the ball.
What's crazy about these movies is, like, I don't know how old you guys were when they came out, but, like, people fucking loved them. Like, it was actually something that was, like, engraved in our culture at the time. And, like, people were hyped for each new movie that came out. Like, people actually really liked them. It's like the same type of effect that you would see with people enjoying Suicide Squad, but instead of it just affecting a small group of people who are really, really into the DC universe, it was like everybody, because Star Wars is just way too fucking popular. And it's ingrained into our culture from the get-go. And it's, as it came out, it was just one of those movies where it's like, everybody has to like it. To prove that you are a part of society, to prove that you can fit in, you have to love Star Wars. And this is the new thing you have to love. And that's basically what it was. And this was before, like, internet media criticism was, like, really, really popular. Now we don't see as much of that anymore. Or at least you see some opposing voices and people can be comfortable saying, like, well, somebody else disagrees. I'm more comfortable vocalizing my own disagreement, sort of thing. But that just wasn't as popular of a thing at the time. And so everybody was just like, oh, yeah, Star Wars. Whoo. You get to see Yoda doing flips. Yeah. Why does he even use a cane? I don't know.
But also, I really gave it a chance this time. Like, I didn't walk into this one, again, wanting to hate it. I wanted to see the potential in it. Because after studying George Lucas and seeing all of his movies, I have, like, a new appreciation for the guy. But this movie's just fucking bad. It's just like, he totally forgot how to make a movie.
They're not even good, like, simplistic adventure serials, though, like the original Star Wars was, where, sure, the characters are simple. Yeah, exactly. Because there's no root in the characters. There's just nothing to care about
and
apart
it's
from
trying
special
to do
effects,
too much.
which now look bad. Yeah.
Yeah. They
You
look
see, like
terrible.
the opening is trying to be like an adventure kind of serial adventure where the main characters go on the ship and have fun, and it doesn't work because then immediately after you go to murder and fucking then you go to this silly scene where they have to land the ship. What a fun landing, or whatever that dumb line was.
Yeah.
It goes
Another
back and
happy
forth.
landing.
It doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like stupid adventure serial for half an hour, and then it goes to being this weird political love story drama, and then back to being a stupid
Shakespearean.
serial. Yeah.
It becomes Shakespeare. They're talking on like a balcony.
Yeah. Oh dear.
What is this movie? What are you doing, George? There's nothing wrong with a Shakespearean take on Star Wars either. Just make the whole movie that.
It didn't need to be 3 movies also.
No.
Like, nothing happens.
There's no through line on
So
the trilogy.
boring.
The characters aren't really different at the end, particularly aside from things you're
No.
told that are now different. Like his progression from being a kid to being Darth Vader is so. It's just nothing. There's no meat there. It's just the most obvious things where he's like, you can imagine him with his pen. Oh, I got to make this innocent little kid into the most ruthless bad guy ever put in like cinema history and pop culture. How about his mum died, and then he has to fight his friend. There we go.
He just becomes like a brat. The entire time he comes across as a brat.
Mm-hmm. And the
Yes.
Jedi are the
And they
same.
don't challenge his character either.
Yeah.
There's no points where he's really happy and then super down and then he goes back up and redeems himself. He's just annoying the entire trilogy.
He's just a little fucking asshole.
Yeah.
And hating Christensen does not help. He kind of sucks.
Yeah.
He kind of really
I
And
think
like
his
he's
voice
annoying,
really hurts
and the
it.
Jedi don't enable him at all. But then Palpatine does, and he just gives in to Palpatine really easily.
And there's
Like,
no
what a fucking
baseline
moron.
understanding of like they keep talking about like a prophecy or something like that. And it's like you never understand what like the prophecy is or what it's even telling. They just keep saying, "Oh yeah, Anakin's important, so you should believe that he's important because you know he's going to be
The
Darth
one
Vader
that will
eventually."
bring balance to the Force. That's what they say. What that means, I don't know.
I don't know.
It means
There's not, like,
balancing.
an intro
It's
prelude
everything
thing,
seems okay
yeah.
to me right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was happening beforehand? He needed balance.
I'm curious though, Adam, which one of the 3 did you enjoy the most?
The third one, because things happened at the end. Nothing happened in the other movies. They're all just really fucking boring and annoying. It's just, it's so irritating. It's so incredibly irritating, and I was only able to watch through all 3 of them because I had described video on. And that made it bearable. You have no idea, like, I guess you guys didn't rewatch, like, the first 2, but, like, you have no idea what it's like to come back to the first movie and experience Jar Jar again for, like, the first time.
No,
Like,
I
he's
did
I
watch
so
it,
I
much
saw
like,
it.
more
6 months ago.
annoying than you
I've
remember.
seen all of them last year.
It's so
He's
insane.
really
Yeah, I watched them
He's
recently too.
super annoying.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
He's also like offensive. Like all of that thing
All
is
of the
just
fucking characters are offensive in different ways. But yeah, there's a shit ton of racist stereotypes, especially in episode 1.
Watto? Hey, gonna give you the party! That fucking guy?
Give me
Awesome.
money.
it's gonna work on me. Only money.
Yeah, George, what are you doing?
Awful.
Come on.
Yeah.
What are you
What is
doing,
that?
George?
At least Star Wars doesn't do that anymore.
No, of course.
We don't have fucking, like, racist caricatures. Fucking... People are like, oh, the new Disney movies are so awful. They're so awful. I'm like, yeah, they're not this bad. I'm sorry. Like, Last Jedi might be better than this, even.
There are 2 good Star Wars movies. The first one, and Empire. And after that, it's just like a shit show. It shows
You
how
mean episode
limited
1?
the idea is.
You said the
So-
first one. You mean episode 1?
The first one is in A New Hope and Empire.
Oh, yeah, New Hope.
Those are the 2 good Star Wars movies, and everything after that is just... It's just fan fiction, basically. It's just total, like, garbage, you know?
I don't know.
Mhm.
I liked episode 6 more than I liked 4 and 5.
Yeah. I wouldn't say Return of the Jedi doesn't count as, like, a good Star Wars movie. It's not as good as the other 2, but
It's not as good.
I still
and
like it.
It's where it began, is all I mean.
And then all the prequels and all the Disney stuff is really bad.
I enjoyed the 6th one more than 4 and 5. Things actually, it felt like there was more consequence. 4 and 5,
you said it
everybody's
was your
just
favorite one.
yeah. It was really a breath of fresh air when somebody got shot in episode 6. I was like, oh, that can happen? Not just everybody is like has the worst aim of all time. They're characters that can get shot. Holy shit!
Do you think the prequels would be more bearable if they had the kind of production value more akin to the originals or what the sequels are like now?
Probably.
Yeah, but like
It probably would
you're
make
talking
them more
about
charming.
redesigning the whole movie from the ground up.
As in,
Because the reason the movie looks so bland is because it's all shot in like a green screen room, right?
Yeah.
Like, if this movie had a stronger visual style and like real sets all the time, it would be way better. I don't think there's any arguing that. The filmmaking needed some energy.
Mm-hmm.
I was baffled when we got scenes like Anakin and Padme just having dinner, and he's like eating a pear. And then in the window, it's all computer animated, like in the background. I'm like, this is just a sky outside. You could have filmed that on planet Earth, and that could have been anywhere. It's just the sky. Why does that have to look like a computer? Why did you seriously have to film this scene in a green screen studio?
It was George Lucas flexing, basically.
It was him being
He was
lazy.
humble bragging. Yeah.
Yeah, it was partly him
He
being
didn't
lazy,
animate
partly
the movie.
him wanting to revolutionize computer effects.
Yeah, he just like
He wanted to revolutionize computer
outsource
effects
most
so
of the
that he
movie.
could be lazy and sit in his chair and direct movies.
Yeah,
That's it.
he didn't want to go outside.
Yeah, exactly. That's what made the originals so like revolutionary for the time. It felt like gritty and real, and the effects were so impressive. But now it's just embarrassing. There was like no thought for the future of how these movies would age either. Like, I didn't even think that perhaps in 10 years' time these movies like might look worse because there'll be better CG and effects will be improved. It's just no thought put into it.
And Star Wars still holds up. The original ones. I mean, they don't look real. You could see the effects in the scenes, but it looks cool.
A charming
Definitely
little
more
miniature
inspired.
will always,
they're very
a
charming.
miniature will always be more charming and nice to look at than Sebulba walking around, or Jar Jar, or a pear, CG pear flying through the sky.
And they're just good stories, too. Like, everyone shows the George Lucas interview footage of him saying the story is the most important thing, visual effects don't matter. Like, he doesn't even follow his own advice. But it's true. He just forgot how to tell a story. These
There's
stories
no
suck.
heart.
That's the biggest problem. There's no heart.
Do you guys remember the opening sequence to episode 2 where Obi-Wan just like fucking jumps out of a window at the assassin droid for no reason?
Yeah, that movie's
Yeah.
really bad for changing character like motivations around. Like, that should have been Anakin. That would fit way more into something he would do.
I agree, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah, you're right.
It just makes no sense.
Yeah, and then it like
No consistency with the characters.
Like if the droid just like moved to the side, he'd fall to his death. But he grabs on. Anakin picks him up in a flying car, and then when Anakin's like driving the flying car or flying it, piloting it, whatever, like Obi-Wan's like, "You're driving too crazy," and Anakin's like, "I thought you liked flying." He's like, "I do like flying. What you're doing is suicide." I'm like, "You just jumped out the fucking window." And grabbed onto an assassin droid that if it wanted to, as it's carrying you around, it could have killed you at any point. What are you talking about? Your driving is like suicide. I do like flying. This is too risky. What, you just did that bullshit.
There are weird issues like that with bringing these characters, like Yoda, for example, into a battlefield, like a traditional battlefield, where I think it's in episode 2, where he's trying to command like the clones, and he has some ridiculous line
Battle
like,
of Geonosis.
"Around the battle, a perimeter create," and it's like the most absurd way of trying to convey instructions. It's so silly. It's too far. Like Yoda in the original movies is just like this little imp, and the whole kind of joke or irony of the scene is that he's like the most powerful Jedi, but he looks like a tiny little swamp creature. Like, that's what makes him work. Putting him into a battlefield and then having him jump around is it just breaks everything that was good about the character.
That whole fight sequence at the end of episode 2 where he's like fucking doing flips. I remember before that came out, I remember like every single ad on TV, every TV spot, everywhere, they would always show Yoda doing flips. and people were so fucking hyped. They were like, "We get to
With his
see him
lightsaber.
fight!" Roar! Like nerd boners everywhere, and it was so insane. Like people were so fucking hyped
It's so
for that.
goofy though.
It's so goofy. It's incredibly goofy.
Because the truth is, Yoda is like one of the most powerful Jedi. He doesn't even need a lightsaber.
He needs
could
a
fucking
cane,
walk
though.
into a room and like kill
It makes
everyone.
him seem
with-
weaker, ironically, by having
It makes
him
you're
fight
right.
people.
It makes him seem weaker. Like the Jedi, like the lightsaber is just like a weapon the Jedi have. It's not like the focal point. It's not the pinnacle of what a Jedi is, and that's what these movies
Mhm.
make it seem. Like they just solely rely on the lightsabers all the time and not the Force.
There's literally a line. He says, "This weapon is your life." I think in the second one.
Yeah, right.
It's like, what?
They completely butcher the Force and what it means and take all the mysticism out of it.
I love how at the end of his fight scene, Dooku manages to get away because like Anakin and Obi-Wan are like passed out on the ground, and then Dooku's like, "Okay, I'm gonna make this gigantic pillar slowly fall on them," and then Yoda gets distracted, and Yoda's like, "Oh no, I have to use the Force to save them," and is like channeling all of his energy and spends like 30 seconds like, "Ugh," while Dooku gets away. I'm like, you could have just moved Anakin and Obi-Wan out of the way with the Force.
Yeah.
Like they're a lot lighter. You could have just pushed them out of the way. Like, why'd you do that? There's so much stupid bullshit. There's so much stupid bullshit that doesn't make any sense.
The whole Battle of Geonosis at the end is fucking awful. It all looks fake. It looks like a PlayStation 1 game.
Yeah,
Terrible.
everything looks
No
fake the entire
stakes at
fucking time.
all. Because
my
it's
God.
literally robots and clones.
There's
Yeah.
two armies you didn't know nothing about fighting.
No, nothing about. That have no souls or any, like, it's just
Yeah.
clones and fucking droids. No one, if all of them died, nothing would matter.
So true.
I think out of all three of them, episode 2 is probably the worst for me. It's like the most boring, and then the only entertaining parts are just so
Yeah.
laughably bad. Does anybody remember? Do you guys remember the like that whole conveyor belt scene where they're all like basically
Yeah.
just,
Of course.
they're basically just in a video game, like dodging all this
Yeah.
mechanical shit, and then R2 like tries to kill C-3PO for some reason. Like he pushes him off.
He
Like
pushes
why
him
did
that
you
off.
scene
try to
is
kill your
totally
friend?
pointless.
Like, why did you do that? And then C-3PO gets like his fucking head taken off, and then he's like, "Oh, C-3PO is a battle droid now." Like, what?
Yeah.
And then he shows up in the battle as though that's supposed to be funny. It doesn't make any sense.
No, there's a fan cut that someone did of the prequels to try and make them bearable, and that whole
Mhm.
conveyor belt fight scene is just taken out, and
That's
it doesn't
hilarious.
affect anything. Yeah.
A lot of stuff is cut out. Jar Jar's cut out. Well, like, someone took all 3 movies and edited them into one movie. Because really, you could. Because
Yeah.
most of them are pointless.
I'd be interested in seeing that.
And that's what they
actually.
did. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I think the movie ends as the helmet is lowered onto Hayden Christensen. And that's where it ends,
Yeah.
instead of him going, no.
It does. It cuts out the no. Yeah, all that stuff is awful. But again, it shows how much they love Star Wars that they re-edited these movies to make them good. Like they
Mhm.
want them to be good. They want the story to be told well. It just wasn't.
I kind of want to talk about that ending sequence because so like Obi-Wan's like, "You were like a brother to me," but then he just leaves Anakin to burn to death. Like, it doesn't
Yeah.
put him out of his misery or anything. Like, okay, you could just walk away. And then for some reason, Anakin stops being on fire because that's how fire works. You know, the fire just magically goes out, even though he's like halfway into lava. And then so
Yeah.
he's
Again, it's like a video game.
he's so injured and has all these burns and like a missing arm or whatever, and like they only put him in the suit theoretically because that's what saves his life, but the suit that they put on him already has the cape, because I guess without the cape he's not Darth Vader. But it's like this is a medical environment where you're trying to like save his life. You just have this suit that's supposed to help him, but you put a cape on it just for some reason. Like, why?
It's just prequelitis. It's like they know all this imagery has to be in there, so it can nicely lead into episode 4. That's the only
Right.
reason. I was reading actually that George Lucas did plan to have a 10-year-old Han Solo in the movie on the planet
Oh, thank God
Kashyyyk
they
being
didn't do
raised by Chewbacca. Oh boy, that would have been like disastrous. I can't even imagine how terrible that would have been.
Apparently, the original
Yeah.
cut was like over 4 hours long
4 hours
for this last film. Yeah, that's crazy.
And it probably was just the action scenes. Like, there clearly wasn't any, like, character development in there. It would have just been like pointless
Action scenes
jokes
and dumb
action
comedy.
scenes.
Like, a lot was cut out of that opening. A lot was cut out of
Yeah.
the beginning when they go to Grievous's ship because it was so goofy.
So we have the
movie's a
whole plot
disaster.
with like Padme and how she's dying, right? But she's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
dying for any good reason other than it's gonna happen because he dreamt it once.
She's gonna die in childbirth,
Yeah.
right? For no reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I love that the medical robot, something that's supposed to provide some sort of like objective assessment, like it's a robot. It's supposed to provide some sort of medical assessment, and the robot comes out and says, "She's fine medically, but she's lost the will to live, so she's dying." And all I'm thinking is like, okay, first of all, that's a bunch of hogwash. Second, if you can tell that she's dying, then she's not fine medically. What could you possibly measure to determine that she's dying and then also say she's fine medically? What, her heart's slowing down? Because that would make her not fine medically. What do you mean she's medically fine, but she's lost the will to live and you can tell that she's dying? How can you tell she's dying if she's fine medically?
A lot of the film is like that. They just say things that they don't expect you to question ever.
It's so
Yeah,
stupid.
Doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make any
There's
sense.
that line in The Phantom Menace where it's at the very beginning of the movie where they're being gassed and they're sending the droids in, and the character, one of those fish people, says something like, "Destroy what's left of them," even though they would have been gassed. Like, why would they send droids in to destroy what's left of a poisoned Jedi? Like, it just makes no sense. Like, why have them say anything at all?
Yeah, I don't know what you're expecting, Ralph. I really don't know what you're expecting.
I
Like,
was expecting us to rewatch it and think it was a masterpiece.
Really?
But sadly, that
No,
didn't
you weren't.
happen.
It is
No. I wanted to give it a chance, though. And there
Ralph
is
is
a lot
right,
to
though.
talk about here.
Loads of people talk about this one in particular as if it's like the saving grace of the prequels, but I just can't see it.
I
can't see it
mean,
either.
it has one of the best
We will all acknowledge it's slightly
pieces
better.
of music in it. The music's pretty great throughout all of them, but like it is really a massive testament to how bad these films are that even with a great score, they're still the most boring, terrible movies ever.
I guarantee
Yeah.
the only like emotional resonance people have with this movie is because of that score. It's the only thing that's like holding it together somewhat. It's the only thing with like emotion behind it and like weight and the grandiose kind of Star Wars thing they've always been going for. Nothing else has that, and it has the heart. It's the only thing with it.
You were supposed to be the chosen one. Yeah, it's
No!
Yeah, well,
That
you
no.
never really explained that, but whatever.
Him being the chosen one.
This movie sucks. 1 out of 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd give it the same. 1 out of 5.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I was debating a 2, because it is better than 1 and 2, but no. It
I don't.
sucks. It's
Yeah,
bad.
unlike Adam, I don't
And it
find
should
them
have been way
boring because
better.
I just find them so hilarious to watch, and they're so
much that just nothing happening.
just the memes.
There's so much.
It's just a total waste.
It's, I was in serious pain. I didn't think I was going to make it.
You know, part of it actually made it more enjoyable for me was just picturing you, Adam, sat there
Oh, good.
watching this movie.
I'm glad.
That was so funny to me.
Watching Hayden Christensen's bad acting.
Yeah.
This is where the fun begins. Oh, God.
Not an enjoyable
Hit the buzz droid,
experience.
center eye.
Yeah, my ratings for the film have not changed, so revisiting them was a completely pointless experience.
And what were
First
your
film,
ratings?
1 out of 10. Second film, 1 out of 10. Third film, 2 out of 10. Because something happened
But
at the
are
end.
you glad you double checked?
No.
Now you never
No,
have to
I'm
watch
not.
these again.
No,
you
I
never have
already
to watch them
knew
again.
I didn't need
Yeah.
to watch it again.
Well, now you're
that much
double
was
sure.
clear. Yeah, now we have like an entire conversation detailing why I'm never gonna watch this shit again.
But the memes.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
Go to prequel memes. It's a Reddit page. It's very good.
Okay.
Lots of
that's
funny
fine.
stuff on there. Better than the movies.
Yeah.
Such a frustrating experience. They're so long.
It is.
Nothing happens. I don't give a shit about anybody. Like, kill off all the characters, please. I don't care. Just
Terrible
end the
visual
movie.
effects.
Yeah, everything looks like shit. Dialogue sucks.
Bad
Characters
lore.
suck. The
Ruined
music
the
is
original
good.
trilogy.
That's about it.
Priorities are
Sam
completely
Jackson's
wrong.
bad. Mm-hmm. Bad inconsistent tone, or no tone at all.
Epic Jar Jar though.
Ugh.
Yeah, Jar Jar was good. How about Jar Jar in 2 and 3? He's barely in them. 3, he's only in the funeral scene at the very end, which was weird.
Yeah, he becomes like a representative of Naboo. For some reason.
Fuck you to the people who hate him.
Yeah. Yeah,
Apparently there's a deleted scene where Palpatine like thanks Jar Jar for letting him get into power in the third one.
Yep. Terribly annoying voice, terribly annoying character. Every line sucks. One of the subtitles that bugged me. That smells stink-a-whiff, he said. Like, fuck off. None of these words are cute. None of them are funny. Yeah.
He was trying to capture.
This is his line.
What he says, step in the poopy.
Well, he steps in poop, and he's like, I stepped in the poopy, or something like that. I remember that. It's so. I hate these fucking movies so much.
Thanks, Ralph.
Oh, that's awesome.
This was your
awesome.
answer to the previous recommendation of
Jean
Jean Dielman. You recommended
Talk
even
about
more
polar opposite
boring
ends of the spectrum.
movies, though. This was more boring. You're supposed to recommend something like
But
fast
see, it
paced.
shows like a woman in her house cleaning her bathtub can be a more engaging film than a fucking $200 million space epic with tons of characters and action.
If
6 hours of it, yeah.
If this trilogy was not connected to a universe that people were already seriously invested in and loved from the get-go, then it would have been about as successful and well-received as Jupiter Ascending.
Or Valerian, or something like that.
Something like that. Like it wouldn't be able to stand by itself, you know? Like it's not. They're not good movies at all. They're really annoying. Nobody would love them. There's no characters that anybody would fall in love with. It's all just people who want to see how the universe they already love started. It's like they want more context. They want all the nerd lore, and that's it.
Right.
I think.
And what you get isn't even good.
Yeah, that's my interpretation anyway.
Before we move on, I have one question for you, Adam.
Go for it.
Is the Madagascar trilogy better or worse than the Star Wars prequel trilogy?
It's better.
Better.
It's better.
Listen, for who they're made for, Madagascar's made for children. Children like it. Star Wars is made for me. The prequels were. I fucking hate them. So, there you go.
Yeah, Madagascar trilogy was much better than the prequel trilogy.
Damn, that's some shade right there.
I don't think it's unreasonable. I think it's pretty accurate from myself, at least.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, of course.
Well, we know.
Okay, let's move on. I suppose it's time for questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you want to leave your own questions for us to answer on this year's Sardonicast, head over to the Sardonicast Reddit, where Ralph will leave a thread, and you can ask whatever you like, and then I'll comb through and find some nice questions. Let's start with one that I guess kind of fits in with this theme of horrible, unlikable characters. From CoolKid1692, who says, is a single character enough to ruin a movie? If so, what are some examples? I have one.
Kat Dennings in Thor 2.
That is a good example, yeah. She makes that movie way more unlikable.
Yep.
I'd actually forgotten about that. I think I've mentioned him before, but Ben from Treasure Planet, he's like this robot voiced by Martin Short who screams every line. Really irritating.
Yeah, there's a lot of comic relief characters in children's films that wind up doing that. Like the polar bears in Balto were really fucking annoying.
In what?
Balto?
Balto. Why don't I know what that is?
It's I don't think it's Don Bluth, but it's like the same generation. Wait, was it Don Bluth? I don't know.
Oh, that one. Yeah, I know the one.
Yeah.
You mean? I've never seen it, but I know
Sled Dog
the poster.
movie or whatever it was.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there's some really annoying
Damn.
comic
Maybe
relief
recommend it one day.
characters. No, it's not great. Yeah, I don't know. Mary Jane and Spider-Man almost ruins it.
Yeah.
That's another
We
good
were talking
one.
about Dark Crystal. The main characters in Dark Crystal
Yeah,
were
that's
pretty bad.
It's so weird. Main characters basically ruining a movie.
Yeah.
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 There's that There's that animated Adam Sandler movie. What's it called? Eight Crazy Nights?
Eight Crazy Nights, yeah. I hate that movie.
Yeah. Any others?
The guy from Clash of the Titans. There's like a little owl that's like supposed to be the comedic relief. Really
that thing.
annoying. Yeah, I forgot his name.
Cuckoo. Something like that. Some alliteration.
Count Dooku.
Buzzboo.
Sure.
Buzzboo. Something like that. That will do.
Buzzboo? I'm gonna look it up. Just so I want to see if it's Buzzboo.
Sierra AM.
Yeah.
Boobo.
Boobo.
Okay. Buzzboo. Cool.
I don't know.
I hate fucking Boobo.
Sometimes it's how the character acts and is written. Sometimes how it's performed. Like there's child actors that can really bring a movie down.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm. Really depends on the movie.
This reminds me. This is totally off topic, but I saw
Sure.
Lion King. I enjoyed it.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
Just to let you guys know, I finally saw it. Thank you. Yeah, Jeremy Irons was great.
Yeah. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
It's like one of the best voice acting
Really sexy
performances of all
voice.
time. Right?
He was actually very good. Yeah, everyone was very good in that. James Earl Jones fucking killed it. Anyway, not to go off topic. Just wanted to say.
Yeah, I've been meaning to rewatch that.
Yeah, that's
actually.
the thing
I've seen
too,
it
is
in a
like that's an
long
animated
time.
kids movie where even the comic relief characters, like they serve their purpose. They're not super annoying.
They're great.
Yeah,
And they're
Timon
introduced
Pumbaa,
at
they're
a
kind of
perfect
funny.
point. Because
Exactly.
it's like a very dark point in the story, and then they come in, and it's perfect.
Yeah.
And they're genuinely funny.
Yeah. That worked really well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Could have been much more annoying, but it wasn't.
Let's go to one from Cole Foxy, who says, have you ever watched a movie and then immediately regretted that you weren't in the right mood for it? What would be an example of a movie for which you'd need to be in a very specific mood to enjoy it?
Like Lawrence of Arabia. It's very long. And it's a great movie, but you gotta reserve some time and you gotta be awake.
Yeah.
David Lynch movies are like that too.
I don't know if I've ever told you my story about Eraserhead. There's so many people that are just so mad at me
Yeah, you
about
did.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I wanted
you gotta watch it all the way through. And...
Yeah. Because he removed chapter selections, and I was like, okay, I'm tired. And out of respect for the movie, I'm gonna go to sleep, and I'm gonna catch it again in the morning. And then I woke up and realized that David Lynch removed chapter selections from the DVD because he's really he really doesn't want you to be able to watch it in any way that's not his way. And so I was like, okay, this DVD player has like
film.
It had like maximum 4 times speed on my DVD player, and I had to return the disc, so I never watched it again. Not out of spite. I'm not like protesting against the movie. Some people think I am. I would love to watch it again. I just never got around to it, and it's like the fault of the director, basically.
Well, you might get a chance coming up.
Nice.
We'll see.
Yeah, I'd say similar things, kind of like First Reformed pops into my mind. It's a great movie. Slow, though, and you kind of have to be in the right mood to be into that kind of thoughtful, slow, plodding discussion type movie like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the same with last episode's movie too, Gene Delman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's one where I feel like you want to be at least somewhat prepared for a 3-hour-long movie and not go in like spiteful and wanting to hate it off the get-go just because of how long it is.
Yeah, this is exactly why I waited so long to watch Tarkovsky's Stalker, is because I wanted to make sure that I was in the right environment, that there wouldn't be like roommates walking around while I did it, and I had enough time, and I was awake enough. I wasn't already like preoccupied with other things. There's some times where you need to like be able to put yourself in the ideal environment to be able to watch something, depending on what your expectations are, I guess. So that would be an answer right there. But I guess I could say The Turin Horse. Wasn't really in the right mindset to watch that. Saw it in theaters, Vancouver Film Fest. I was still working at Best Buy at the time, and I had invited a coworker to hang out with me for like the first time ever. Like we had become friends. This is the first time that I'd ever invited him to do something outside of work or whatever. I'm like, yeah, we'll go to the film fest. Just picked a random movie because it had the word horse in the title, and wound up watching it. And I was like, oh man, like the entire time I was watching it, I was like more concerned about his experience than actually experiencing the movie, because it's such a it's almost like a Jean Dielman kind of thing. And you know, from what remember about it. Not as much of a point, and also a bit more, like, I still don't like it that much, but I'm willing to give it a second shot at some point. But during that movie, I was like, oh man, like, this is the first impression I'm giving to my coworker, who I have no idea what his film tastes are, and this is just like some of the most like boring, slow shit that I could possibly be watching. Perhaps if I had watched it again and I wasn't in that mindset, then maybe I would have enjoyed it more. But I mean, from what I remember, I didn't really have a Jean Dielman experience. Like even that movie, like, it stayed in my head and I appreciated it after I watched it, even if my first viewing wasn't like something where I fell in love with it. I still appreciated its existence, whereas the Turin Horse, just not so much.
Okay. Let's go to one from Screensaver, who says, what are some of your favorite creature designs in any movie? Some creatures.
Hellboy. Recently a new Hellboy movie came out, which is fucking awful, from what I've heard.
Yeah,
but like the original Hellboy, the Guillermo one, has tons of great creature designs, including Hellboy himself, but also like his sidekicks, and the Golden Army was fucking cool, and they're like these orc creatures that look cool. Yeah.
The Faun from Pan's Labyrinth. That's a good one.
Yeah, I like the Pale Man from Pan's Labyrinth. That's a really
that
Guillermo
cool,
in
creepy
general.
design.
Yeah, Guillermo's great with creature design.
Yeah. I also really like the Skeksis from the Dark Crystal. It's probably the best thing about that movie.
Yeah.
The design of those creatures.
That looks great. The bear from Annihilation,
Xenomorph.
without spoiling anything. Xenomorph, yeah. Anything H.R. Giger, I guess. Yeah, lots of great creature design out there. The Thing, if you want to call that a design. I mean, there's separate monsters
Designs
that appear in the film. Like,
each
it
one of
takes
them's
many
amazing.
different forms, but like every single one is just so cool, so effective and scary and bizarre, and very, very well orchestrated in terms of how they did it practically. That's like one of the best creature design practical effects movie ever, in my opinion.
Probably the best. I can't think of a
Probably,
single
for sure.
one
Honestly,
one that gets such visceral reactions out of me.
I think it's my favorite horror movie.
Yeah, that's a lot of people's favorite horror movies, so that's a good one. It's a good pick. I'm between that and Halloween, which are like both John Carpenter. So that guy knows what the fuck he's doing.
Any more before we move on?
Jar Jar Binks?
Oh, the best. Top tier.
I guess Darth Vader's not a monster.
Like Jabba the Hutt's quite a good one. Like the
Yeah,
puppet
Jabba
version
the
of him.
Hutt's a good one. Yeah.
I guess.
I guess. That's your favorite one.
Yeah.
The one with Jabba the Hutt in it.
Yeah. Yep. Star Wars. Love talking about Star Wars.
Passion for Star Wars. It's so exhilarating.
Yeah.
I really don't give a shit.
It's contagious.
Okay. Let's move on to one from the Uyu show. What do you guys think is collectively your favorite/least favorite type of movie? I interpret that as, I guess, genres.
I think we've had this question before, and we talked about kind of like the definition of what was considered like a chick flick or romantic comedy sort of thing. But
right.
Since then, I've actually realized that there's another that I should have included on this as my least favorite type of movie. Bollywood. Bollywood movies suck, and they're
you don't like Bollywood movies?
Well, like they have the same problem as like nerd bro comic book movies on IMDb, where if you find one on the top 250, chances are it's just not really deserving of that spot, and just there's a this hardcore fan base that loves it so much, but it's like, I don't know, it not really my kind of thing. And so like every Bollywood movie that shows up on the top 250, I try watching it, and it's just so cheesy and bad, and all this terrible over dramatic editing, and like acting sucks. I hate the story, I hate the characters. I'm like, fuck, I want to watch a good Bollywood movie, but
I
I've
enjoy
never seen
it.
One.
I enjoy that stuff a lot, but yeah, it's not for you, probably. It's not for a lot of people, I totally understand. Yeah. They're also very long, Bollywood movies, and there are usually a lot of different genres within one movie.
Romantic comedies, I feel like the good ones are an exception to the rule, normally. You can normally bank on them being a certain type of annoying kind of movie. So that'd be my pick for least favorite.
I was going to say Mockbuster.
Yeah, I was thinking about
you're
saying
just
that.
taking someone else's movie and just fucking redoing it, a cheaper version.
Yep.
Like trying to
Yeah.
market off of it. How dare you? Like that's just offensive and it's bad.
Those are kind of funny to me.
Like it's
though.
got an extra layer to it.
I get more
Yeah,
enjoyment.
fuck
Yeah,
out of
they're
those than
funny.
Bollywood movies.
Sometimes they're funny. A lot of the times they're really boring and transparent.
Yeah.
So.
No, I'd agree with that.
And then for, I guess, my favorite genre would just be something that's not really a genre movie at all. Like if something's
Something
like incredibly
like
unique
its
and I
own
haven't
thing?
seen it before, you know? Because you can't really categorize all those
Like
into
what
the same
genre
spot.
is The Holy Mountain?
Exactly.
What genre is that in?
Yeah.
Religious
Fantasy,
experience.
dark comedy? I guess not.
I'm just a sucker for science fiction, though, in general.
Yeah, science fiction, drama. That seems to be what we steer toward the most.
Yeah.
I love action films, and I hope to recommend more action films
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm
in
the
the
same.
future that you guys haven't seen. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen Police Story yet, but I got the Criterion
Ooh.
pre-ordered, so
Nice.
Cool.
Looking
yeah,
forward to
Police
that.
Story's a good one. Hard Boiled?
haven't seen that either. I've only seen the bad John Woo films.
Face Off.
Yeah.
Those fucking things.
Epic.
Wind
I've seen
Talkers.
Face
You ever see Wind Talkers? That
No.
movie's fucking awful. It's so bad. It's like a war movie, but it's done in that John Woo style, like over the top, ridiculous. It doesn't
Yeah.
work at all because it's
Mhm.
a war movie. It's World War II. This is not how World War II was, John Woo.
Faker Daker has one for us. What is the most suffering that you guys have ever done for a video, and did it pay off?
Suffering. Nut Shack. That's an easy one.
Well, just being taken down over and over.
No, the show itself. Fuck all that stuff. The
Oh,
show
just getting
itself
through
is
it.
agonizing to get through. Yeah. All that other stuff, that's the cherry on the shit cake. The show is awful
That's awesome.
and like painful to get through one episode, let alone a whole season. I only saw like 5 episodes of it because I couldn't take it.
Damn.
Anyway.
It really depends.
That's brilliant.
It depends.
Yeah, I mean,
Does one
like,
not spring into your mind?
Unfriended was a really difficult one to get through, not because of the film itself, but because like when I create my reviews, a lot of what's put into them is kind of come up with on the spot, especially the editing jokes, where I'm like, oh yeah, this would be a great opportunity for a gag here and a gag here, and I was still using FCP7 when I was editing those. And basically, it was a film where, because it was all on a computer screen, like there was so much opportunity for just funny gags that I could put in, and like taking other YouTubers and putting them in the Skype call and all that. And the editing takes so long for those kinds of things. And so basically the entire series of that review was just like so many editing gags, and it just took so long. And that was at a point in time where like I was like getting kicked out of my old place because the landlord wanted the property back, and like my channel was, there weren't that many videos being posted on there, and I was like in the middle of the Synecdoche, New York review, and I was just like, shit, I got to get something funny out because people have been itching for that. It was a very stressful point in time, especially just because of how long each of those video parts took. So that would be one of them where like I definitely suffered for it, but now it's like people watch them, and without that context of just what it went into it, like they're great videos, and I'm happy with how they turned out.
It paid off. Yeah, the editing on those is super smooth.
I wouldn't want to like sacrifice.
Like the faces on the footage are like seamless. Like you put Chris Stuckman in one of the boxes, like in the Skype call. Like if you're not paying attention, you don't even notice it because it's so seamless.
Yeah, I really like jokes like that,
So.
where it's like you can watch it again and maybe pick up on something else the second time. And I like films like
exactly.
that.
I
I
do
want to
stuff
reflect
like that
that
too.
in the things that I create. So yeah, that would be one for sure.
Especially because they're long. They're long videos, so some people watch them a few times
Mm-hmm.
because they watch them like they're like films or something. And yeah, so it's good to put like multiple viewing things in there for people, whether they're jokes or like little analysis stuff. It's fun.
For me, it'd probably be the not Disney collection video where I had to watch like eight
long one.
rip-off movies. Yeah, but I edited it within 24 hours because I had to go away for like the next couple weeks. So I just drank loads of caffeine and edited that entire video in one
Those
sitting.
are fucking
Holy
fun.
It was horrible.
shit.
Yeah,
It was horrible.
Wow.
I'm coming up on something like that pretty soon because I'm going to be away for a while in May. And so I'm like right now, I'm like, oh, fuck, I got to get some stuff ready so I can release something before that point. And holy shit, not looking forward to it, but I've done it before. So see how that goes.
You have to now and again.
Yeah.
It's just painful in general. Like when you do a long video on like something particularly bad, you wind up seeing and knowing whatever this material is in and out so thoroughly by the end of it. You're just so sick of seeing every frame of like whatever it is, the movie or TV show, that by the end you just never want to see it again.
Also, while I'm editing and I put in the footage, I usually notice like 20 more things and I re-record.
Yeah.
And it usually makes the whole process so much more painful. Do you guys have that same thing?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it just keeps, it's like an endless cycle of that, where you just keep adding more in, and like you see more footage and you're like, oh, I gotta add more. It's like an endless cycle until you go, okay, I gotta cut this fucking video out.
I was mentioning to Alex that from the time that I watched Endgame and then just immediately started recording, did that the entire day, and then I passed it on to my friend Damo, who does the editing for a lot of the quickies. They worked on it for like 8 hours, and then I woke back up and I started going through the rest of it, added more stuff, took some stuff out, and edited the rest of it together. And that whole process, like the video was literally constantly being worked on, even when I was asleep, because it got passed on and then I started working on it again. And that whole process was like 36 hours of just like one video of nonstop. So I didn't really get much sleep. So like that was a tough one for like a quickie, I guess. Like it wasn't really for something still in theaters, especially because there's just so little footage released of that film because everything's a spoiler. And so there was a lot of like Damo did a great job making a lot of the animations and stuff that really helped describe what I was talking about with no footage available. Funny. It was just one of those. It's like a 20-minute long video too.
I will watch it.
Cool.
Okay, let's do this one from Certified Hype Beast. Have you ever seen a movie so bad you shut it off part way in? If so, what movie? I chose this one for a specific reason. Because I've been trying to sit through that movie, The Lorax. It's the only Illumination film I haven't seen. Ooh. And I think it might be the worst one. I think it might be the worst one. Yeah. It's so insulting. It's like got the worst structure of like an animated film like that I think I've ever seen. It's so insulting.
That and Minions. That and Minions are the worst.
I think it's worse than Minions.
You think so? I don't know.
I think it might be. Yeah.
It has that slimy... Well, the Lorax story is like very anti-consumerism and, you know, save nature. And then the movie, like the marketing of it and the product titles are so totally the opposite. It's like diaper ads and car commercials.
Yeah, that's funny.
Illumination as a company is the villain in the movie. It's hilarious. Like, they don't even realize what they're doing.
It's like Disney with the Empire in Star Wars. Like, they are the Empire.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
Yeah, it's happened a few times. I would say it happens a lot with me, but not necessarily because a film is like so bad that I couldn't handle watching the rest of it, but because when I'm doing stuff like my yearly list videos, like I have so much shit to watch through that I got to be selective. And if something is like I've given it like 40 minutes or like I'm halfway through it, I'm like, well, no matter what happens, this isn't going to be on the list. So, and then I'll just skip through the rest of it and be like, oh, okay, that's the gist of what happened at the end. Yeah, that happens quite often just because of how much content I need to go through to be able to find stuff for my list videos.
That's fair.
I tried rewatching the Condemned with Stone Cold Steve Austin, just as like a like, oh yeah, I watched this movie when I was younger, but I don't remember anything about it, and it's like 2007 anyway, so I was like, okay, maybe it'll be a guilty pleasure or something. Started watching it. Holy crap, could not make it very far. So bad. So bad. Like some of the clunkiest camera work ever. Like everything's shaky cam where it doesn't need to be. And it's like, it's not like just like, oh yeah, they didn't use stationary camera techniques and so it's just shaky by default. They literally, like the cameraman was having a fucking field day, just like shaking around as much as possible when things that are happening are not even like that intense at all. It's like they're trying to create the illusion of action by just shaking the camera as much as possible. It was so boring, and I didn't make it very far. That's one.
I've shut off a lot of movies.
Nothing springing into your head?
On Netflix, it happens all the time. Netflix, it happens a lot.
That's true, yeah.
Because you're like encouraged to do it. You're like, oh, this sucks, and then you flip off after 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I did that to Bring It On recently.
Nice.
I shut it off like halfway through. The first Bring It On movie. It wasn't as good as the later ones. Like, the Bring It On 4, 5, and 6 are much better.
Okay.
That's such a funny sentence.
I'm serious. You should watch Bring It On 6 worldwide #CheerSmack.
I'm good.
That's the name of the movie.
I'm good, Ralph.
It's hilarious. There's like an anonymous hacker dance group, like they're anonymous themes, you know, and they hack into their cheer competition at the beginning. It's so good. This is totally not related to the question, but anyway, that's my answer.
I have one more short one that I think would be good to end on.
Cool.
From JazzyBoy327, who says, would you guys ever let a guest or the fans of the show recommend a film? I've seen lots of people asking about this. The fans want to do like one episode where they recommend a film.
We could try it out, I think. I don't know when.
Yeah, we've talked about it before, but...
Yeah, I don't know how we'd quite do it, but I think
it
for
wouldn't
like
be
a
opposed
one-off
to
maybe.
it. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll work out a date, and then you guys, you recommend something for us.
Yeah.
I just don't want it to be something stupid, you know?
Yeah,
I guess it is.
There needs to be some process.
Something that like everyone's seen. Yeah.
Well, that's the
Like,
problem is
watch,
like if
I
it's
don't know.
decided by Reddit
Avengers Endgame.
upvotes, then people are going to upvote the shit they've seen. And if there's like a really great recommendation, you know, but nobody's seen it, then nobody's going to upvote it.
Yeah, we can
That
try
being
it
said,
out.
I think the people on our Reddit are smart enough to like make it work, you know?
Yeah, I've
Like,
just
I don't
seen a
think they're
lot of
gonna
people
Fuck it up.
ask.
Yeah,
that idea.
I've seen it too. And I think it's a good idea. So
Okay.
we should do it at some point.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Those are some good questions.
We did it, everybody. We survived.
We did it.
Good job, every guy. We did it.
Yay.
Thank you.
Woo!
Woo!
Wait. We got a recommendation first. I was about to say thank you
Yeah.
for
That's right.
listening.
Is it me?
Yeah.
It's me, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So I'm hoping it'll be a contrast to the Star Wars prequels. It's a movie I'm pretty sure none of us have seen called Eyes Without a Face. It's a horror movie from 1960 that's supposed to be very good. I've heard very good
Cool.
things about it. It's not very long. It looks short and sweet. It looks creepy. And I'm excited to see what it's like.
Okay.
Very nice.
Let me look this up real quick.
That's Eyes Without a Face.
I have actually seen some of this movie in movie class, film
Oh, really?
classes.
Did it
Yeah,
look alright?
Like scenes though, not the whole thing. Yeah, it looks cool. Yeah, this is
Okay,
like
cool.
an iconic movie. So yeah, it's
Nice.
a good choice.
Nice,
Very
nice,
good
nice.
choice.
I'm just shocked
Yeah.
that something was recommended that wasn't already on my watch list.
Damn, I did it.
Wow.
Hooray.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Excited. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening to this episode of Sardonicast. If you want to support the show, $2 a month, sardonicast.com. Sign up for premium. You'll get these episodes early. Also, patreon.com/sardonicast will get you the same thing. We also have merch. The merch link is working. We did it, boys.
Cool. That's everything.
We
Hooray.
did it.
Did it.
Yay.
Woo!
The Star Wars.
And
Great.
Avengers.
Now this is where the fun begins.
Ugh.
Oh dear. You did a poopy.
Yeah, I just.
It's stepping the poopy.
Yep.
So fucking bad.
I don't need to watch any of them again. That's for sure. Ugh. I guess I'll
You
watch.
should watch
episode
the making
9.
of the Phantom Menace. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah,
It's
that's
like
great.
the documentary. It's so funny when they
Mhm.
screen Phantom Menace. Like the reactions of everybody when it's over is fucking
Yeah.
hysterical.
Oh, yeah?
Because they all hate it.
Oh really?
Yeah. It's a part of. You can get it with like the Phantom Menace Blu-ray.
Okay.
It's, like, on
well,
the disc.
I have that now, so
Yeah.
maybe I'll check
Cool.
it out.
See if you could get it or watch it. It's funny.
Okay. Thank you for
I wrote,
listening,
like, the script
everybody.
on a notepad. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Sorry.
Bye.
Bye.